We are live. What up, internet? My name is braV. This is episode, I believe, number 28 of I Can't Produce a Podcast, and I would love to welcome my new friend, Homemade Spaceship. And I would just like to say I'm very excited for this episode because I have been listening to you, my friend, for about, it has to be since Cosmic Latte came out, so that's at least 6 years. And I just want to say I've been a fan through and through. I recently saw you at Cervantes. I met you in person briefly at an after party, and you've been a very friendly guy, and just very approachable. So thank you for that.
Dude, thank you so much, man. Yeah. Dude, yeah, that's crazy. Cosmic Latte came out so long ago, huh? Holy cow. Yeah, I appreciate you, man. It's been good to meet you too, and just talking to you and stuff like that. You're a dope homie. So heck yeah, man. Yeah, holy cow. Cosmic Latte came out 6 years ago, dude. Yeah.
Well,
that was a different time.
SoundCloud says 6 years, so whatever that timer is. We did just play something off your newest album, and like I listened to basically your whole discography today. There is quite a difference in your newest album versus, I mean, if we're doing apples to apples, to Cosmic Latte, your sound has totally evolved. So I played Shaka. That one personally speaks. It was really tough deciding what my favorite song off your new album was. I really like your sample choice. I really like your arrangement. But Shaka, I think for me, I liked what you did rhythmically. Risky is probably the wrong word. Cause
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, that was an interesting one. You know who I was super inspired by at the time when I wrote that song was more Kismet.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, they're just insane with the production, man, and the way that they like a lot of it's like a big chord and like one big stutter, is what they do a lot, and like I was obsessed with that, and when I wrote that, the whole goal of that song and that part of the album was that you're kind of you're lost in space, but you're having fun adventuring in it,
Yeah.
You're kind of just like, hey, I don't know how to get home from here or whatever, but I'm just gonna whip this spaceship around in space and kind of have fun and explore cool stuff. And the idea of chopping a really big chord really, really small was it aligned with the more Kismet thing, and kind of the vibe I was going with. And I'm so stoked you like that song. That was one that wasn't very drop orientated necessarily, and I was kind of I hope people still get it. I hope people still like it. And that's awesome to hear that that's your favorite, because that's one of the ones that I was most insecure about. So thank you.
Well, yeah, it's I'd say if I had to use the word risky, I think you put most of your risk into Voyager Part 1. I mean, that's a 10-minute song, and and it's but it's got almost just about the same amount of plays as Chaka, so it's doing well. It's got more.
Dude, Again, Voyager Part 1 was one that a lot of my other industry friends and other producer friends were like, dude, you can't put a 12-minute song on your album. You can't put an 11-minute song on your album. And, and there was something in me, it was my inner child or something like that, is do it. Just do it. And I love that song. And the way I made that one too, that was I have 3 more of those. So and I plan on putting them at the end of all the albums and stuff as a cool little thing. But I made that during quarantine, and I had been just collecting a bunch of gear. I just started getting into analog synths and other stuff like that.
Yeah. And
hooking them up to my guitar pedals and other weird stuff like that. Just being just really out of the box. And what I mean by out of the box is out of the computer, as much as possible. So those are just live jams that I woke up in the morning and I would just go down there, and I had everything hooked up, and I just hit play and record, and just recorded a bunch of stuff and had myself set up with a lot of different loops and stuff. But I just kind of jammed those out, and I'm so glad that people like it. Big inspirations on that too. The big inspiration behind writing an album was one of my favorite albums, which is Animals by Pink Floyd. I just spent a lot of my early 20s, because I had that on vinyl. So I got caught with weed in Illinois when I was 16 or 17 or something like that, and I had to do community service. And I would always bug the people for if you bugged them to do stuff, they would give you more hours or whatever, right? one time this lady was just like, she was so sick of me asking her for stuff to do. She's like, she brought me into the basement. She's like, here's a pile of boxes, move them to that corner. And it's just like busy work. And I was like, okay. And then at the bottom of the big pile, man, was this box of records. And they were all a bunch of like rare records and stuff like that. So I got a bunch of really dope records, and I brought them upstairs, and like they're selling records for like 25 cents a piece. So like I paid for them, and like, yeah, but I was like, I just forgotten about dope records. So Animals was one of them, and that has just been like, it was always my favorite record to play, because just start to finish, it's just like beautiful, and it flows, and it sort of tells this crazy story, and it's like this big continuous thing. Yeah, and so just like capturing that vibe was a big thing on the album, but I really feel like it like kind of encapsulated in Voyager, and all those little like big jams that I did. And I just love that whole thing of like the last song on the album being kind of weird and interesting too.
It's a very Pink Floyd-esque thing to do, for sure.
Yeah, and the big inspiration came from this band Circa Survive, if you've ever heard of them. They're like kind of like an emo band.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of. They're like kind of post-hardcore kind of stuff. And on their album Jaturna, I think it is, but like there's a song Meet Me in Montauk. And the thing with that was that the song on the album, if you had the CD, the last song seemed to only be 3 minutes, but if it like on the album, it would be like 19 minutes, right? And so if you waited like 4 minutes of silence on the album, they went into this like jam at the end of it. And like, it was so cool. It was like this secret hidden thing. Yeah, 9-minute Circa Survive jam at the end of the record. So I wanted to do something weird like that too.
That must have been really awesome on like a CD where like you can't see the waveform coming up.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I didn't do it like that, because everyone would be like, okay, silence, I'm just going to skip to the next song. But I was like, I'm just going to give it to people. Like, here at the end is like this weird, 12-minute, 11-minute, just like music weird thing that doesn't really fit like necessarily a genre. It's kind of trip hoppy, I guess. I
wouldn't say. I mean, I guess I see what you mean by when you say like it doesn't really fit, but like it has plenty of I'd say purpose being in the album. I mean that
yeah,
and that's a real classic inspiration. I'm really happy to hear Pink Floyd come up so early in the conversation. That's a good sign.
Yeah, they're insane. Yeah, it's you can kind of like, I felt like I could kind of be like an artist, it's art, you can do whatever you want, right? But it kind of circles back to like, I've been a little more focused in on that, I guess, with my sound, because we were talking about how Cosmic Latte is so different than Ghost Ride the Spaceship, my new album. And I really kind of felt like, back in Cosmic Latte, I really felt like doing absolutely whatever I wanted. If I wanted to make a tech house song and put it out, I'd do it. Like Bedbug Mullet's just a big like arpeggiator and a bunch of stuff, versus like Cigarette Sundials is like very pretty lightsy and a lot more instruments and stuff.
Yeah.
And what I kind of found was like, and kind of through like reflection of looking at what kind of music I like, is that like I really like when an artist can deliver a certain type of solid vibe, because like as someone who uses music to medicate and stuff like that, and as like a self-help thing and just like to deal with emotions and stuff, like I always know that I can go to certain artists to help me with certain emotions and take me to a certain place. If we were to put it into like really broad terms, if you just get your heart broken, it's nice to know you got Elenium there to like, music you through that, versus if like you're feeling like, like you want to just like, work out harder than you ever, get crazy or something, you can listen to some super heavy dubstep artist like Excision or something like that,
I see what you mean, like kind of stapling it's nice, the emotion
to know that people can come to you as an artist for like a certain type of emotion or vibe, so I really tried to focus in on that lately, and it's kind of why I feel like my sound definitely, I maybe like changed, but I definitely kind of like watered it down, or focused it, let's not say watered down, but like focused it, on like these really pretty heavy bass heavy songs, and these fun funkier bass heavy songs and stuff like that. But I also feel like if I do keep it focused to a degree, that leaves me this one extra piece of room in which I really can do whatever I want, you know?
Yeah.
Because if 8 out of 10 of the songs on the album are really focused, that gives me 2 extra songs that I can be super weird and still get my point across, you know?
Right.
So,
yeah. And your placement on them has also been pretty genius, or in that regard. I mean, you've put Voyager at the end of the album. Hopefully people will get your vibe by that point.
Yeah, I actually, there's a whole I love talking about this, but it's like there's a whole like concept to the album that I am going to start making.
Please dig in. I really want to know.
Yeah,
I invited you on the show because I think that whatever you put behind your project, I want to know. Like I said.
Yeah. So I've been like teaching at a studio in Denver, like just Ableton production and stuff for probably like the past 4 or 5 years. And I really learned a lot, but one of the biggest things I learned, like, I learned a lot teaching, which of course happens, but I learned a lot in the regard of one of the biggest things that's ever had people make music or whatever are sort of like having creative restrictions or having like some sort of really solid imaginative goal or something like that, but if you look back through all of music, a lot of really cool music was made because of the sort of restrictions or guidelines or concept that they had behind stuff.
Completely agree.
If you really dig deep. And if you're sort of picking out of a pool of infinite, it becomes overwhelming. But if you really have a focus and a random idea, and that's the cool thing about imagination and creativity, is it can really be anything. And you just go with it and you elaborate it and add the right twists and stuff. Like anything can be cool. You just got to kind of go with something. But I really wanted to tell like a story. So like I'm a huge nerd. I love video games, and I'm really into like, especially like a lot of Japanese Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, The Last of Us is one of my favorite games. Like I love games with like this journey and this story, and I'm also into like Magic cards and like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and all sorts of other stuff. And I love like the canon and like the story behind it and stuff like that.
World building is a very fascinating art form to me.
Yeah, so I decided with the album that like I wanted to start telling the story, and basically it's like the story of this wannabe astronaut, let's say, who is just very like stressed out, doesn't feel like they fit in the world and stuff like that, and just kind of stressed out and always wanting to go on some crazy adventure and stuff like that. So basically he gets the idea to build a spaceship one day and blast off Earth, and that's Kick Dust. So it's like, we must go to the moon, and I tried to make the music very like blast off-y. So, it starts off with like the control panel starting up, like, and then like, boom, boom, boom. Those were like kind of like the thrusters going off in my imagination. And so that song's about him leaving Earth. And having those guidelines just like help me create this a lot more. Like what's a song that emulates blasting off Earth with this reckless attitude where you're like sayonara, like peace out, I'm out of here, woo! Like is that crazy neighbor again? He thinks he's gonna go to space. Yeah, exactly. So there's that. That's Kick Dust, and then Astro. Hey, Wallace, come here. And then Astro Jones is like, so he blasts off Earth. For anyone listening, that's Wallace.
Yeah, we got the homie Wallace in the chat too.
Yeah, she gets scared sometimes.
Okay.
And then Astro Jones is basically like he's blasting off through space and he's just leaving the solar system kind of, and he meets a really dope alien, which was also like something that I've always thought about in my head. Like there's got to be mean aliens out there and stuff like that, just like there's mean humans, right? But like there's got to be some cool ones too.
Yeah.
Right? Like you and I, like be like, yeah, what's up, dude? What do you want to do, man? Like, what do you want to see? Like, and so like I wrote that song kind of being like, what if you met a really cool alien and you like jammed with them, And so that's Astro Jones. So I was like, started off with like a flute riff and then just added some samples to it. And I was like, cool, like here's my human instruments. Now add your alien wubs. Is kind of like the inspiration for that song.
Yeah.
And then Gassed Up is they start like, they start having a really good time and kind of getting a little crazy. And it's about like them actually like, the term Ghost Ride the Spaceship comes into mind again, where it's like, we're driving the spaceship recklessly. Like we're having a good time and like partying and stuff like that. partying with an alien is always something that I've always wanted to do too. And so Gassed Up is like the heaviest song, and it was just
space drugs, that's for sure.
no, right? So what are you guys up to? Yeah. Yeah, and so Gassed Up is them kind of just like driving the spaceship recklessly, you know, like partying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Space Blaster is the one where they're supposed to get into like a little turbulence. I kind of see it like maybe they get like attacked by space pirates, or like maybe they go through an asteroid field while they're driving too fast or something like that, you know. That one's supposed to be like that mid-tempo, kind of a little bit more like, you know, tension, a little bit more kind of like, I don't know, a little bit more like action movie type sounds or something like that. Like, you know, tensions are high. And then the interlude is supposed to be them going through a wormhole. So they accidentally slip through a wormhole when they lose control of the ship. And so the interlude is really weird too. It's again like a bunch of analog synths and instruments and stuff like that. But I wrote it in really weird time signatures, which was fun. So I wrote it in like 7/4 and 5/4, and it kind of switches off between that and 4/4 here and there, which in like music terms, it's like 4/4 is the normal counting. You know, that's what like most music is written in, and a lot of other like Tool and math rock and stuff like that are often written in like weird time signatures and weird metal and stuff. So it was really fun to experiment with that in the interlude, just to create this sort of sense of confusion. And then on when they leave the wormhole, they're kind of lost in space, which was another like concept I really wanted to push. It's sort of like, you know, like, hey, like I set off on an adventure to go to adventure and not turn back, you know, but it's sort of like, well, now there is no turning back, you know, like you wanted to be lost and you wanted to go out on an adventure, and now you went through a wormhole and the wormhole closed and you're in some way different part of the galaxy and you have no, and yeah, that is a cool concept I wanted to put in there too. But that's what Elevation is I'm sort of like coming into this new world. And then Electric Indigo is like kind of like this, like them coming to terms with it, you know. Also kind of wrote Electric Indigo under the inspiration of like, imagine being lost in space with like someone you love, like your partner or something like that, you know. And it's just like, hey, this is beautiful, you know, like we may be lost, we may never be able to go home, but like screw it, you know, like we've got each other and it's beautiful, and let's watch this nebula blossom, you know, or whatever. So there's that. And then Chaka, like I said, is like them kind of just like having fun, like enjoying their lives, flying through space, like making a good time out of it. My Sunshine, just like wrap it up, My Sunshine was kind of like written with the inspiration of like trying to find a new home almost, but like I can imagine like space is so big, right? And like the first time they get close to another star, kind of feels like, you know, like, wow, like there's another star, it's a whole nother world, a whole nother like solar system and stuff like that. Yeah, and then Voyager is supposed to represent the black hole or the wormhole or whatever they purposely go through. Come here. Hey, Wallace.
He's got a lot to say. I think he doesn't feel represented in your story.
I had her on my lap, and then she decided to get upset, so I didn't put her on there. Yeah, and then so Voyager is supposed to be. So I helped. Okay. Talk about me. Yeah. Voyager is like sort of like supposed to be this weird black hole that they go into, that they purposely go into. They're like, hey man, why not another one?
Right.
Let's
yeah.
We're already lost. Yeah. Let's go for it, right? So yeah, that was kind of like the inspiration, and just like having those guidelines and having this sort of story in my head. It felt so cool to like bring in a part to my music that really resonates with me, and I feel like a lot of other people. Is just like, you know, these really cool stories that movies and video games tell, and like, you know, and stuff like that, and try to add that to music. But like having those guidelines helped me create so much, and I really feel like that was a huge just like a benefactor to the album coming out, you know, the way I really wanted it to. And so yeah, it was really cool.
My dude,
but yeah, that's the story.
I have so many thoughts. I really like what you've said. I mean, first of all, as a fan, just knowing the story behind it is really cool. But the story that you've told, I think, it resonates with me. You know, and I
everyone's on their own journey.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
I think everyone feels that way. A lot of people ask me what the name Homemade Spaceship means, and like it came to be through a certain turn of events and stuff like that. But for me, it's like I feel like everyone has a homemade spaceship. You know, it's what you use to like escape the gravity of the world or whatever, you know, right? Like whether it's video games, crocheting, jogging, working out, you know, mountain climbing, painting, you know, like whatever takes you away into that creative flow state, you know, I think is like everyone's homemade spaceship. And like that's why I named my music project that, because music is my little escape route. Um, and you know, it's like hop on it if you want to come all along for the ride, you know. Um, but yeah,
Man,
yeah,
I really like that. I mean, and I was definitely gonna ask you where the name came from, originally, but
yeah.
but I do all, I mean, man, I like that interpretation. I feel woefully underprepared for the interview, man. Like that is so cool. Like
Yeah,
like
yeah, it just
putting
kind of
that
comes from
context
like,
behind it, I it just kind of blows my, you know, what I thought about it, which, you know, it might have been pretty surface level. I was, you know, but it, because
what were you thinking?
well, it's
I'd
just
love to know.
it's really just a dope name. It's, you know, homemade spaceship.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like some like dude in his backyard, kind of like how your album starts off, but it's like, you know, some little scrappy little put together spaceship, but it like actually fucking
yeah,
works. And I think
yeah, yeah.
that's the part that I think that was my always my interpretation of it, and I just think that that's a really fun idea to play with regardless.
No, that's about right too, though, because like when I started making beats, I had this one dude, this older dude who I'd met, who was an old hip hop producer, and he was kind of like my mentor. His name was Mark Fish, and he got me really into sampling, you know,
Yeah.
and like sampling other people's music. And at that time, you know, I was a musician since I was 12 and played in bands. And I was like, I'm not going to sample other people's music, you know. So I tried to sample myself, but then like eventually too, I was just like, screw it, you know, I'm gonna sample other people. Is like called Pockets because a song, it's like my most played song, but it's called Pockets because I started making it out of stuff that was just in my pockets. So it does kind of have that vibe, you know. I'm just kind of like, you know, I'm gonna use anything I can to patch together the spaceship.
Yeah.
And like just make a song out of whatever, you know. Chaka has a sample from this dude Enrique Pernier in it. Don't tell him. Hopefully he doesn't hear this podcast. But like, what else are there samples of on the album? There's Nas samples in Kick Dust. What other like musical samples though did I sample for this? John the Revelator on Electric Indigo is the vocals, and that's a song by this old Memphis blues artist, Son House, who's like one of the earliest recorded artists. I feel like the stuff is old. But yeah. But also, I am like, Electric Indigo is a great example. Like I played every other instrument on that: guitar, the organs, the pianos, and stuff like that. And sampled all that, but also mashed it up with other stuff. And I'm just like, just build something that works, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did you, so before we, I just wanted, before I forgot, have you ever considered putting out like parallel works with your albums? Because it like, I don't. I recently got hip, or I've got a new friend who kind of got me hip to where he's been showing me a lot of metal, and the thing about metal and like screamo, I suppose, or black metal, I'm not really a fan, but I've been learning a lot about it recently. Is like, you can't really understand what they're saying a lot of the time unless they have like really good enunciation, and there's like a lot of like,
Yeah.
you know, like grunginess and like just, you know, grunges and low growls and stuff like that. But because of that, they often put out like parallel works with their music, like stories, like and the lyrics are often pretty story dense because you can't fucking understand what the fuck they're saying.
Yeah, I know the Black Dahlia Murder does that. I love metal, so that was what I used to play before. Metal and like punk and stuff like that was what I used to like play before I made electronic music. And I know the Black Dahlia Murder, I believe, does that. It's one of my favorite metal bands. And I know like their album Nocturnal, I believe, is like a story of this dude like swimming, like going and conquering a castle by himself or something like that. Yeah, and it's really cool. But what exactly do you mean by parallel works? Like a graphic novel or something like that?
It could be something, I think, as simple as like that story that you just ran me through, like putting it into like a small little short story, I think would be like a very cool thing. And like,
yes,
you don't even have to like, you know, and mention the songs individually or list them exactly like that, but like, I really enjoy the story that you told. It seems like we have a lot of similar interests in what storytelling is and what it means to us, and I think it'd be worth making it into something like because it was all interconnected, and I think that's not something that is often put into albums anymore. That's a personal opinion. I don't I think things are moving very quickly. People put out songs and albums with the intent of getting them done quickly, and that's something that takes a little bit of time. And I think you've put in that time, and it's paid off, man. Like I really like the album, and that's certainly a cool way to think about it now that you've explained it.
Yeah. I've always wanted to do a graphic novel, so I think that would be really cool. It's just I just want to be able to do it right. I think.
Yeah.
I think, and like just like I just like it's just a financial thing necessarily. Honestly.
Oh, for
sure. I want to be able to pay someone professional to do a professional job.
More of it being like a time thing, like like how much time is it going to take you to write a short story on top of releasing an album?
Well, I think it could come out later, hopefully, too, or I can do it on the next one. But I definitely agree, and that's definitely something I want to do, is like a graphic novel with it too, or something like that, or something cool. I mean, the story's already basically written, and that's another thing is like I definitely feel like in today's day and age with like how media is working and sort of what it's turning into, is that like whatever idea you have, even if it's like musical or something like that, like you've got to kind of turn it into a whole community or vibe, or very much like a multimedia type thing, a lot of the time I feel like. And I feel like it's cool because like my purpose as an artist has just been to like tell a story and make people feel a certain type of way, that would be totally like worth my time, I feel like, and I feel like after I took a break from maybe like focusing on music super hard and focused on sort of telling the story, I mean, I can only imagine that yeah, dude, definitely. I definitely want to do that. I think a film or like an animated movie or something like that might end up getting expensive, but a graphic novel or something like that I think would be so cool.
That sounds pretty cool. That I'd love to see you do that somehow.
Yeah. Soon, hopefully, yes.
Well, the other two things I have written down that I just have jotted down here are, one, I either want to talk about how musical constraints, because I thought that was a topic. So I also teach music production. I teach guitar and I teach DJing essentially, but I assume you have a lot more experience in Ableton than I do. I just teach very beginner stuff. And so
everybody.
One of the things that I really think is important, or I think we both might think is important, that maybe doesn't get stressed enough is just creative constraints. And like, I guess my example is that I basically had like every sample that anybody could ever want in my like massive hard drive. I had like 1,000 like cracked plugins, like fucking the latest version of Ableton. And at one point I was just like, what am I doing? But
well, that's what I was saying too, is that when you have an infinite pool to choose out of, it makes it impossible to be creative. I saw this video online the other day. I forget who was talking, but it was like basically talking about anxiety, and it was like anxiety comes from aimlessness or not having direction, and you can have that in your life, or you can even have that creatively, and it's like if I plopped you down in the middle of the desert and you didn't know which way to go, you'd freak out,
Oh yeah.
You might walk 10 miles north, 5 miles east, and then 5 miles south, or something like that. If you have a direction or something like that, it just makes it so much easier. So if you're plopped down in the desert, but you see like an oasis or like a village in the distance or something like that, like you feel a lot calmer. You're like, all right, cool. At least I can kind of like go there and figure it out, and like that's another thing that I've done production wise that like I talked about, like focusing in and stuff, is that is like sort of just using my surroundings at the time, not reaching into the internet or like all this open space, but like trying to more focus on what I have available to me. And like I play guitar, bass, flute, and keys, stuff like that. So that leaves like a lot of, stuff for me to play with. But just like, yeah, keeping it more focused, and working with what you have around you, at least at first, like, man, that's just so much more fun and easy creative process. I really feel like, yeah, it's just like, yeah, that choice of choosing from anything is so hard. And like with my students, like when I see them the first day and I ask them what kind of music they want to make, I feel like the only wrong answer is everything,
True.
because you'll never do that. You have to kind of focus on like some things, especially with how much different types of music there are in the world, so it's like, and also like what good is everything in a world of special places. I always talk about like restaurants, and like it doesn't cost more money to listen to a big artist than it does to listen to a small artist. So it's like, if restaurants were like that, like there's no point in going to Applebee's or Chili's or at Chili's is fire. I take that back, but like kind of like a restaurant that kind of serves a little bit of everything. There's no point in going to that when you like, if I want like like Mexican food, I can go to this awesome Mexican restaurant. There's no point in going to like the Walmart of musicians, when everyone has a specialty.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. And like, just, yeah, having that focus, it makes it more personal too, I feel like, because you end up focusing on stuff you like and you end up liking your product a lot better rather than just making something, So, yeah, I don't know. I
think that's a very strong approach. Very like, yeah. To continue the story, it's short. I just stopped. I would constrain myself to one, like sample folder, or like I just realized that I wasn't gonna get good if I didn't just work with the bare minimum. And again, like having everything is cool, because now I just have a better understanding of what it means to constrain myself, because like I can be even more creative with even less. Plugin, again, I don't have like the million that I have. I'll pick one and I'll say I'm gonna make an entire song with this plugin. Like I know it's not meant to make fucking drums, or like maybe it's only really good at making pads, but I'm gonna make an entire song with this plugin. And I think that was just a perspective that I it felt it was, yeah, I wasn't taught it, and it came rather late in my journey, but I'm really happy that I've learned it.
Yeah, I love that concept of just using stuff what they're not supposed to. My friend Sodown told me this story one time that really stuck with me when we were talking about sound design, and he was working on that song Eskimo with Mr. Bill at the time, I think.
Love that song.
Yeah, and he asked Mr. Bill, like, so Sodown asked Mr. Bill, he was like, how do I get better at sound design? And like the question didn't like register with Bill. He was like, it's like, what do you mean get better at sound design? He's like, just take an audio effect and use it how it's not supposed to be used, And it's like, yes, like that's how you get cool stuff, because I teach this way too about audio effects. Like every audio effect has one intended purpose. And outside of that intended purpose, there's a million ways to misuse it. So I use a chainsaw, for example, right? Like the intended purpose of a chainsaw nowadays is to chop down trees, right?
Yeah, generally.
That's the normal way to use a chainsaw, just like the normal way to use reverb or a compressor.
99 out of 100 will use it to chop down trees, yes.
Yeah, but like, so it's meant to be used to chop down a tree, right?
Right.
And that's what it's intended for. Just like a compressor is intended to do this, or reverb's intended to do that, right? But like, you could also use a chainsaw for things it's not supposed to be used for, and it's probably dope. Like if I want to open a beer with a chainsaw, that's a really cool way to open a beer, right?
Yeah.
Like a little aggressive, a little over the top, but dope nonetheless, right? Or like, watch me enter my car with nothing but a chainsaw, like that's cool, and I want to watch that. I don't want to watch someone use a chainsaw to chop down trees, depending on how stoned I am. But like I want to watch someone misuse this stuff,
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting, and that's what's cool. So yeah, that's just like an ode to being random and wild.
I really like that analogy. I'm just gonna think about like 100 different ways to use a chainsaw now. So that's
exactly.
That's cool.
I mean, you can juggle them, right? And that's cool, right?
It's just that's a very strong analogy. So fuck yeah. No, that's only solidified my I guess my philosophy, or the topic of constraining your creativity, or your creative options, I suppose.
Or well, yeah, you got to understand how creativity works, kind of, and that's more of how it works than like I just came up with this random amazing idea.
Yeah.
It's like that. Not really how it works. Yeah, but at least in my experience. But yeah.
Cool. Well, like, okay, so I kind of have a question, I guess, moving on a tiny bit. You did mention that you have some samples in your newest album, Ghost Ride the Spaceship. Do you have you had to go through the process of like clearing samples? Is that like something that you've had to do, or is
no. So basically, I don't really care.
okay?
And like they're so small, and like I use them creatively, right? I feel like so I take the I've stolen someone's washing machine, right? And I just rip off the front panel and use it as a porthole.
Okay. Gotcha.
So like
Yeah.
I'm not really worried about it too much because
Yeah.
like I'm not just like stealing a main idea. Like sampling, like I would be worried. So like look at like Through the Wire by Kanye West, how he sampled that
yeah.
Chaka Khan Through the Fire song.
He samples so often. He's like he's one of the classic examples of like an artist that samples other artists and like makes,
and he's like
them
straight up
extraordinarily popular again.
Yeah, and like just takes a whole loop and puts it on there. That's not really necessarily what I do. I use just like parts of it.
Yeah,
I feel like. So I'm not really worried about like Sony A&R like figuring that out,
Yeah.
It's a lot more like, like when like artists like DJ Shadow or Pretty Lights is a better example. He'll sample something and like there's a cool website called whosampled.com and it shows you what people sampled. And like I was very inspired by that and like it kind of matched up with what I felt like I wanted to do. It's like you'll look at some Pretty Light samples and like you'll be like, he sampled Cake here. Like you're like, what? It's like pitched up and chopped and distorted and it's like you can't even tell that that's the original sample, just like vaguely. And that's the way I like to do it. It's just like not taking just like the straight up loop or anything vocals that I chopped up. This is for the sickest, like that's just like a tiny chunk of something. And like honestly, if they did come at me, and I hope that they don't see this podcast, right? This would be funny. It's playing 5 years later. This exact audio recording is playing in a courtroom.
Oh yeah.
And I hope they don't find this podcast. Yeah. But it's like like they're never gonna find that, and if they do, like I'm probably super famous at that point, so it's like cool.
Well, the question came about because it seems to be in the conversation on like I guess like I've trained a few YouTube algorithms and the one that icantproduce is on like is really focused towards getting me like latest news in production and shit like that. And so I was just wondering, kind of like you've seen a lot of success in launching an album. You've got 8,000. I just wanted to know, like, at your stage, have you had to go through the process of it? And plus, I also knew that, like, I think I kind of knew the answer to the question, which was like, I know that you're not sampling in the way that a lot of these hip hop artists and like just normal trap beat makers or just like a beat that Kanye West would fucking either put out or rap over. Like, it's a totally different style of sampling, like creative. Putting a massive creative spin on a sample, like I hardly consider sampling, and I was just kind of like just somebody outside the scene. I'm still trying to figure out like where the line is, type deal.
I mean, so legally, don't do it. Like legally, it's not okay. There's no like 7-second rule. I believe that's a rumor.
Yeah.
I don't believe that like if it's so and so years old that you can sample it. I think that rule, like if it does exist, I think I vaguely remember hearing that it goes back to like the 1700s and like the 1800s and shit. And like there's even some stuff like Mozart stuff was rebought by Sony at this point, so technically it's still not expired or something, but like just don't do it, I guess. But like to me, it's just worth it because like I feel like I do it in a way where it's not super direct, and
also,
and there's something
DJs at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I really think there's something special about like like grabbing a part of someone's beautiful performance that they put their heart and soul into, and just even if it's just a couple guitar bends or like something like that, like they put their heart and soul in that performance. It was recorded onto tape, it's got all these other instruments and other stuff behind it, it's just such a like a heartfelt thing to capture. And that's something I learned, that like when I started trying to sample myself all the time, waking up every morning and making a loop. My loops obviously weren't as good as like like, you know, all these really dope old samples and stuff like that of these people who put their heart and soul in these songs and work so hard to get them recorded and stuff like that, you know?
Right.
So there's something really cool about capturing this magic moment in music, and then especially like playing with it. I saw this during the pandemic. Actually, I was watching a Peekaboo live stream, and Peekaboo took a chunk of a Michael Jackson acapella, and he like pitched it up a bunch, put a crap ton of distortion on it, and all of a sudden it was just like a drop lead. But the way Michael Jackson kind of navigated the notes, it was like, you know, however he does it, like after processing that really unique, beautiful performance, like it came out really beautiful and unique, you know? You know, as hard as I tried, I could not sing those notes like Michael Jackson did, you know? Just like capturing that performance and then playing with that raw energy and really transmuting it rather than just using it directly. There's a lot of power in sort of transmuting that too. And sound designing it is kind of what I mean, you know? So that's another huge benefit of sampling. And like, I also feel like as long as you're not taking like their main idea and like their hook or whatever, from my personal perspective, I feel like it's the record labels that care more that you're doing that, not the musician. Like if I go sample, you know, like some old like, you know, Hank Williams song, like Hank Williams probably doesn't care. Like you took a little chunk of my guitar and chopped it up into that, like that's pretty cool, you know. It's the record labels that like, hey, that's my property, get off that, give us money, we need more money, you know. So it's like I don't really feel like, as long as I'm not stealing a main idea or something like that, that like, I really honestly like, I feel that like most artists would think that it's cool, and it's the record labels and the money hungry execs that are like, pay me for that, you know. So
fine,
it doesn't weigh on my conscience much. Yeah. So yeah, I say do it because it's with like, you know, sound design and put like, you know, a lot of intention into it. But like, I mean, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get sued one day just because I said this, but like, you know, but like, if you do it good enough, there's no way they're going to find out, you know. So
I really like that perspective. I mean, that's I think that's the better way to approach it. I really, there's as far as I can tell, there's like a big community of people out there that like just like make beats and sell them and just like rip. They just wait for a lawsuit essentially.
And you're not going to get it until you blow up, until there's like, you know, $10,000 in royalties there, which is what, like a couple million plays. But at that point, you use that sample to catapult yourself into a position in which you're getting millions of plays. So like, you know, it's probably worth it. But I think it's definitely worth it.
What an interesting state the music industry is in.
It's a really weird state right now.
I think it. I mean, I didn't. I think this question kind of like unveils that, or at least makes that pretty clear. Like I feel like a lot of music these days, the music I like, and the whole underground EDM bass scene is basically just like I hope that record labels like don't know what they are essentially.
That too. Also, have you heard of TrackLib?
No, I haven't.
TrackLib is like, so you know, Splice for everyone who's listening is like, it's a royalty-free sample where you can get loops and vocals and samples of instruments and stuff, right?
Yeah.
For royalty-free, it's just for you to use to make music. And then TrackLib is a website like Splice where people can register their songs so you can sample them. And you got to pay TrackLib like a monthly fee. And then also, if you do find a song that you want to use, the person who puts it up can license it as an A, B, or C license, which means that for the C license, you only have to pay $50 to clear it. A B license is $500, and a C license or an A license is $1,500 to clear. But you can download songs to sample, capture those performances, and then just if you don't have a lot of money, just use the C license ones. And if you do want to use the sample and you're worried about it, clear it for $50. You know. So that's a really cool resource for any producers at home who are into sampling and want to do it in a legal way without, you know, getting some crazy lawyer knocking on your door one day.
Yeah. No, that sounds like good advice. TrackLib, I'll have to write that down. Put it in my Discord server.
Yeah, it's dope. I've used it quite a bit actually. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I never really got into Splice because I just ended up having like so many samples that I just didn't use that I thought I should just start using them more and don't need to.
Yeah, I like Splice because I can kind of just search for whatever I need at the time, which is nice.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, if you have a bunch of samples, I'm sure you probably have something like that in there.
Yeah, just like my own little home little
Yeah.
Splice. It's Splice at home, literally.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Splice necessarily either. I always tell people it's like, I feel like Splice is much like the American health insurance system. You know, it's like it's something that we need, right? But the system for it just sucks. Like, you know, like it's
America.
yeah, it's very America. Yeah, Splice. And I know they're raking in the money, dude. You know how many people probably subscribe to that and totally forgot? Like, I mean, I have like 6,000 credits right now, so.
I mean, I remember I wanted to. There we go. We're back. Yeah, I remember I wanted to make samples for Splice and like sell them on there. So I'm sure it's just like
I would love to do that.
cesspool of stuff like that.
Yeah, dude, that would be so cool. I've always wanted to do that. I'm actually thinking about launching a Patreon soon.
What kind of stuff are you thinking about putting on your Patreon?
So what I want to do is I want to make like the bottom tier, just kind of like for like homies and like kind of like fans, stuff like that, where it's like I'm gonna drop like probably like one weird remix or something like that a month. Like I'm always making some weird stuff that doesn't necessarily align with what I want to release officially. Yeah. And also like I made like a J. Cole Lights Out remix the other week, and like I posted it in my Facebook group for people to check out on a private SoundCloud link. But like, I don't know, all my little ID tools that my DJ tools, like little like one drop loops and other things like that, I would like to post so people can hear it, and like weird remixes and other like, you know, for that and my brand. So like, I think it would be a cool place to like, for like however much a month or whatever, to like just drop that stuff, like early merch pre-orders, stuff like that. Anything else that would be like convenient to like, you know, the homies. And then the second tier, I wanted to be like a producer tier, where I could drop like a bunch of Ableton racks I make, templates, samples, sessions. I've been sampling a lot of my analog synths, and I've been doing a lot of sample writing at the studio that I work at with like all the grand pianos and all the nice mic pre's and stuff like that. So I was definitely wanting to like make some stuff like that for producers. And then the top tier, I just wanted to be like kind of like a student tier, so you could kind of like get like a, for however much a month, I still haven't really decided, but like you get a 1 hour Zoom meeting, you know, to go over your music and stuff like that, since I've spent so much time teaching, and I do like teaching, and it is like a nice little side hustle here.
Do you teach at your studio that you work at, or is that a freelance thing that you do?
No, I mostly teach out of the studio. Okay. Yeah, it's really nice. It's like a really nice KMG Studios in like downtown Denver. Yeah, we've got like, we got SSL consoles, every mic. We got a bunch of analog synths, really nice listening environments and stuff like that. So it's really cool. We have like a 6-month Ableton course and like recording course, 6-month recording course, live sound course. Like we have a bunch of cool shit there. So it's like a cool community, and like, yeah. But I was also thinking about doing like the Patreon thing too, to a degree. So, but yeah, that stuff would be cool. But maybe soon. I'm just gotta get it all in order.
Yeah, well,
I think about this stuff too much.
Well, just do it. You were like, I'm thinking about starting a Patreon, and then you had a tier system, and exactly, you probably know how much you're thinking about charging for each tier system. You know what you're putting in each tier system. I'm like, oh no, he's got it like ready to go essentially.
yeah, it would be cool. I just want to kind of like build more of a community and a lot of stuff, and I enjoy teaching too, because like it's really cool to like turn people into musicians. I feel like I kind of like.
I don't mean to interrupt you. How did you get involved in teaching and in your studio particularly? Like it sounded like you moved out here from Illinois. I'm also not from here.
Yeah. So I went to like recording school in Chicago, out of the school that was basically like based out of Columbia Art School in Chicago, and I did like really well in the recording school. I was like one of the top ones in my class, I remember, and it was weird because like I didn't do very hot in high school, you know, but like, you know, the recording school I did really well, and so I really got it and I really understood it, and I felt that like kind of confidence. And then just being in Denver, and you know, having worked at studios, so I worked at recording studios for a bit in Chicago and jumped around there. So I had a lot of confidence with like understanding stuff, and I had a lot of really good mentors. I think is where the confidence came from. And like one of my mentors was this dude Doug McBride, who recorded Fall Out Boy, Nora Jones, Rise Against. You don't like Fall Out Boy, do you, Wallace? Yeah, and like so he was awesome, and he just taught me so much good stuff, and so I had a lot of confidence. And then just being broke in my 20s and like living in Denver and you know playing shows to stay afloat, especially before I kind of like you know started like you know playing shows across the country and stuff like that. I was just broke and I didn't want to work a regular job, so I kind of like started teaching here and there, and you know teaching people about mastering mostly, and also doing mastering for people because that's what so Doug did mostly too, so he taught me a lot about that. Yeah, and just sort of started doing it. And then when I found out about the school there, and I was like, you know, I kind of hit him up one day and I was like, hey, if you guys ever need an instructor, holler. And I like told them like, you know, my resume and stuff like that. And they're like, word. And then a couple, like, I think 6 months later, they're like, yo, we need an instructor. So I just kind of started teaching there, and it was cool, and I enjoy it. So it's really fun, and it's really rewarding just to turn people into musicians. You know, it's like I feel like it's like the Matrix, and I'm like waking people up from the Matrix. You know, it's like, yes, dude, everything in your reality is based off of frequencies. Like everything is frequency based, and music is the language of frequencies. It's literally just wiggly air that makes your brain feel weird, makes you want to text your ex or drive your car 50 miles over the speed limit. You know, and it's just like, and it's like the language of the world. You know, so I don't know. I just think it's so cool, and I love like getting people into this world. And it's like a journal, you know, and it's just like it's medicative. Like I have this one. I just got this new tattoo of a Bright Eyes lyric, which is an old like folk emo artist dude, and it's now I'm drunk as hell on the piano bench, and when I press the keys, it all gets reversed. The sound of loneliness makes me happier. And just like having that, so, you know, when you're feeling down, you can just kind of pick up an instrument and just sort of just like, you know, start playing it, and it can sort of make those feelings go away or help you like do that. And like, it's been something that's just like kept me alive, you know, throughout the years, and has really formed my identity. And for me to like show people that and also give them that is like, it's one of the most rewarding things I think I've done in my life. So yeah, I definitely do love teaching. And I got hopes and dreams. The way I see my life going ideally is that, like, you know, maybe in 10 years or something like that, I get an associate's or master's degree or something like that, and like, you know, become like some sort of college professor or something like that. I just have dreams of me having this long white gray hair and like a long gray beard and being like the electronic music professor or something like that.
So you really like teaching. Okay, sick. Yeah.
I mean, I see it as a definite thing to do when the party's over here. I mean, let's be realistic. I'm not going to be homemade Spaceship till I'm 55 years old, you know. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So
that's
it's cool.
It's teaching has been it sounds like really fulfilling. I mean, like I've always thought of music as a language, but you really have I think you've really broadened my horizons here a bit I mean, it is the language, like music is the language of frequencies, and I always thought of it and think of it as like a language, like a different language that I'm learning how to speak. And when I communicate and when I listen to other people's music or play music with other people, I do feel like I'm communicating with them. But then like thinking about it as like, you know, frequencies being the language of the universe is a much broader way of thinking about that.
So if you think about it too, like this is what I would say, you know, like, so everything's frequencies too, which is weird. So like hard materials are like denser vibration of frequency, right? They're vibrating faster, so they're denser.
Right.
Softer materials are vibrating at a slower, you know, frequency, so they're softer and more malleable or whatever. And then, you know, we have gas, liquid, air, solids and stuff like that, and those are all different speeds. Then you can think light is frequencies, right?
Yeah.
Obviously sound is frequencies. So light, sound, touch, you know, I don't know how smell works, but probably, right? You know, you know, it's like I also like to think that like It's like anxiety is a high out of tune frequency, out of phase frequency, and joy is a high in tune frequency, and like relaxation is a low in tune frequency, and like depression is like a low out of tune frequency. So like you put music into that and it sort of starts making sense how it can sort of affect like your emotional frequency and shit like that, and lift you up or bring you some sort of place or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely some sort of language. I always feel like it's like the HTML or the coding language that the world's written in.
I cannot agree more. Yeah,
yeah.
I don't really have much else to say on it because for me that's more of a hunch. It's very hard for me to put into words. I don't feel like I understand.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hunch for me too. I sound too confident. I feel like when I talk about it, sometimes like I'm talking like it's the truth, but it's just like I'm very much a theoreticist. I think is the word, right? Yeah, I love to theorize about things, and like I get passionate about it, and I feel like sometimes it comes across like I'm saying like I believe in this 100% or something.
Dude, no.
It's like it's just a weird idea. Yeah.
Well, it's something that okay, maybe the reason I put it like that is it's because it's something I've been putting a lot more serious thought into recently. I will say that like when I growing up, and part of the thing growing up, I went through an extraordinarily like atheist phase where I was basically I was pretty anti-Catholic or Christian or church, I guess is the best word, but I was also really anti like hippie bullshit.
Yeah.
and like now that it's like, and it's like I really didn't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in like like aliens essentially. And I guess as psychedelics really broke that down a bit, but being able to understand and actually put like serious thought into these broader ideas, like frequencies being the thing that make up the universe. Like I mean, I know that you were saying you were speaking a bit too confidently, but you are speaking. Yes.
Yeah, it kind of sounds right. Yeah, I'm logical. But yeah, it's a cool thing to think about, man. It takes the stress away to a degree, and just like, yeah, I'm just gonna exist then, it's definitely something that's definitely a vibe I've always tried to like put out in my music too. The whole Carl Sagan pale blue dot thing, where it's like you're on a small blue dot in the middle of a humongous area, and you are a small dot on that dot. Like it's like, whoa. Yeah, I'll never forget. I feel like a big thing that got me into space as a kid and made me so obsessed with like outer space was a librarian. I was checking out a space book one time, and I have this weird memory of this like librarian. I love this librarian. I think her name was Miss Taylor. And shout out Miss Taylor if you're listening. But she was like, "Space goes on forever, Robert." And I was like, "Forever? Like, what do you mean forever?" Like my little second grade brain just got broken, then scrambled by my librarian just by her saying like, "Space is infinite." And I was like, "What does this mean?" Like, that's so cool. Like. Yeah, I love that stuff, man. I just love like I think that's part of the reason why I'm not like a hyper social person sometimes, is because like and that's another thing that I like almost like to have the vibe of my music. I was just like, bro, like I'm not thinking about that. Like I'm thinking about like going out in space forever. Like my mind just wanders to these like weird semi-philosophical places too much, and just like what.
Well, I yeah. As someone who enjoys your music, I find it really valuable that you're putting it into, again, you're writing it in musical terms. So again, like it's like I said, learning this language and expressing it in the way that you are electronically, and learning this new field of music, kind of exploring these new boundaries and really pioneering this genre is sick as fuck. So like, yeah,
thanks, man.
Just exist, keep existing, my dude. Don't worry about how philosophical you get, because I'm loving it.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it's all I'm trying to do. Yeah, it's almost, you simplify everything. You kind of just start looking sort of inward or whatever, I guess, to a degree. Life starts to make more sense. You're not worrying about everything else, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, today is the day for me to kind of like, today's my birthday. I'm turning a year older, and like, I'm fucking, thanks, man. I really appreciate you saying that. it's a cool thing that I've been thinking about is kind of like different role models that I've had to take on recently, because all of my role models when I was younger like didn't really live past 28. And so like I'm getting to this age and I'm 26 and I'm like, fuck, Bradley Noel died at 27 or like 28, and like he was like one of my biggest fucking inspirations. I mean, and like Stevie Ray Vaughan's gone. Like it's like,
yeah, he's one of my favorites.
One, like the list grows thinner as I get older, and I'm like, fuck, who the hell do I want to be like if I like keep getting older?
I know, right, dude? Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I definitely idolized like partying and all that stuff, and those kind of artists. And then, yeah, it was, you know, it was just like getting older and being like, oh shit, like,
yeah,
maybe I shouldn't look up to that kind of lifestyle, and because those people didn't really make it, you know.
right.
And I don't know, but like, yeah, it's yeah, I've definitely like, yeah, in that regard cleaned up my life a bunch, and it's been way better, and I've been more creative. And yeah, I don't know, I really appreciate my health these days, which is good. I drink a lot of water and I work out, and you know, I still smoke cigarettes and some other stuff, but like I've learned a balance. You know, I'm the kind of guy who leaves the gym and lights up a cig. Like, at least I'm doing somewhat better, you know. But yeah, I definitely started idolizing. Like, it's funny, as a musician, sometimes you start idolizing like these managers and agents and stuff like that. Like, wow, look at the empire this guy built. Like,
Yeah,
you know, and like other stuff like that, or just not musicians even, and just like other like smart people, or not even celebrities, or some like sort of like public person, but even just like people in your life where you're like, damn, Uncle Charlie really put up with some shit, and look how cool he is still, you know, like he went through all that and he's still the homie. Like, that's who I want to be like, man, you know. You know, I always just try to sort of be like, you know, I just kind of want to be the person that makes things a little bit better for everyone. You know, and I used to be kind of like a pessimist or nihilist too, and I kind of like put that whole phase of my life behind me. And it's just like, you know what, man, just like just try to put out positivity in the 15 feet around you whenever you can. And you know, you can't overdo the positivity for sure, but like, yeah, that's just definitely something that's been like a cool focus too. It's just like, you know, stopping complaining is a good one.
yeah,
You know, and just every time you want to complain, just try to say something that you're grateful for. And it's crazy, like people who say stuff like that too. It's like, you know, oh, the key to happiness is gratitude, you know. And you hear that a million times, but then you experience it once, you know, and you're like, holy cow, like that is the key. Because, you know, whenever something bad happens, there's probably something to be grateful for, and if we can just focus on that, you know, don't disregard the negative, and you know, learn from it, stuff like that. Don't be toxic positivity and all that stuff.
right, yeah.
It's just so much of a cooler way to live your life. It's just so much of a lighter way, and that's definitely helped me too, to be more productive, more creative, just a better person to, you know, my friends and family and stuff like that, which is really cool too. When a lot of that sort of idol worship of these people, you know, I was sort of more of a destructive person, you know, and wasn't necessarily you know, my best self, which is cool. So it's cool to take a look at that as we get older, like you were saying, yeah, and like
A certain
reassess.
truth. Oh yeah, no, keep going.
No, I was done.
The well, a certain truth that I learned is that I think you can really only have as much love for others as you do for yourself.
Yeah.
And that sounds like a really I always thought that sounded very selfish when I put it that way, but I think generally it's like I'm not gonna treat, and a lot of this bleeds into my idea that I think that whatever I kind of put into my consciousness is what I'm going to try and express through my music. So like trying to live a good consciousness is technically going to result in the best music.
Well, when you have guilt or something like that, it blocks the creative process,
Yeah.
in my experience. You know, guilt especially.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't be creative right now. Like, I feel bad about this thing. But I also get what you're saying. Like, you have to take care of yourself, you know, and that's a huge thing. And to take care of yourself, you have to love yourself. But I think also to balance that, like something that I'm sure you also would agree with on top of that, is that like something I've noticed is that the more you care about other people and the more effort you put into making sure that your friends and family and people around you, even strangers and stuff like that, are okay, the less you worry about yourself. And it sort of minimizes your problems. And it's sort of crazy when you worry so much about yourself, you figure out something to worry about and it becomes a bigger problem than it is. But if you're more worried about making sure everyone else is okay and just casually, don't freak out about it, but like, your problems sort of just like fade away into the distance a little bit, and you realize that, wow, I was kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, as they say about this, and that problem wasn't as big of a deal as my brain was telling me. And just like to do that is also a really cool thing I've sort of been focusing on a lot recently.
I really agree with what you said, which is kind of try and like affect the good like 15 feet around you. Like that's like, I think when I try
to make it a better place, there's so many people being assholes.
I agree. Well, the thing is, like, I feel like I don't know if I tend to complain, but when I complain, I feel like it's usually on a broader level instead of being like something that I can obviously immediately change. But the thing is, if it is like literally like 15 feet, like that was a cool way of putting it, because like, a person being 15 feet away from me is kind of like infinite. When you think about it, like, I could affect that person's life, but they are one soul out of 6 billion that I could be around. So it's
and another thing too is like when people are assholes too, it's like they're hurting. Like, so if you can turn around and just like give them some love, it might fix it. I always like to think about everyone's inner child. Like even if someone's being like a dick in traffic or something like that, I'm like, or cuts me off, I'm like, well, this person is an asshole, right? But maybe it's because they got all their toys taken away when they were a kid, and like that's how they learned to survive. So it's like maybe by showing them some love, and like you can be like sort of like, hey, like it's okay, like it's not like that anymore, like we can all chill, because people have done that for me. It's a beautiful world out there, to be honest. There's a lot of really nice people.
I would agree. I think a beautiful thing about one of the scenes, or sorry, the bass scene, the scene that I think you're helping curate and create is that perspective. I think a lot of people that gravitate towards this type of music tend to want to ask those types of questions and want to lean towards the positive side and look at the beautiful things that we have in the world, which is certainly my perspective. You and I, you mentioned that you like metal. I'm not like a huge metalhead, but I love Tool. I love System of a Down. I used to really like My Chemical Romance, 3 Days Grace. I could go on and on. Papa Roach. Like it's. It's you need the dark with the light, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree with that too. You've got to recognize both, for sure. You can't just pick out of one bin the whole time. You got to take a responsible amount out of the positive and the negative. I feel like it's like there's two comment boxes. One's positive things, one's negative things. You can't just read all the positive ones, and you can't just read all the negative ones.
And that's this. And I feel like in this scene and with your music, you do kind of explore, maybe we can move on to talking about like your sound design. Like, do you like getting like how do you get like really dark and dangerous sounds versus like your more melodic touches? Because you often blend the two, and that's kind of the cool part about bass music is blending the whether it's a sample or you play live instruments, you rip guitar, you play flute live on stage, and it's blending these majorly different genres, but doing it in an absolutely new way. So what's I have written down here, like, what do you have, like a favorite VST, and essentially which DAW do you use? Is it Ableton?
So I use Ableton.
Okay.
Love Ableton, been using it for over a decade. One of my favorite like methods to create little bass sounds and stuff like that is I take a very like rock and roll approach, I like to think.
Fuck yeah.
Where I take anything and I just distort the shit out of it.
Okay.
With really interesting filters, weird EQs, just random weird signal chains. But I like to take something like a sine wave or a couple sine waves just sort of next to each other and just start just distorting the crap out of them and moving around the sine waves till I get the right squeak or the right hum or the right whatever.
The right squeak. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and just messing with guitar amps and OTT, lots of distortion. I love saturator.
Yeah.
And I love operator. Operator is definitely one of my favorites, just because it's got a lot just right there. And I got 4 oscillators I can play with and do a bunch of other stuff too. But I love operator and just like OTT and saturator and an amp, which are all built-in Ableton effects. Like I love using those. So I definitely like it. Definitely revolves a lot around heavy distortion, and it doesn't always end up sounding super heavy, especially if I start with something that's very pure. So if I take just like a pure sine wave, just like a pure tone, and I start distorting it to a degree, it's just going to get kind of fuzzy and velvety at first, which like is how I got those sounds on Kick Dust and like the second or the second half of the first drop, where it kind of goes to that like UFO abduction beam kind of stuff, kind of stuff. And those are just like distorted sine waves that are played together with like not like a crazy amount of distortion, but a pretty good amount of distortion. But then like for example, the second drop of Kick Dust, that's with this like just like on a square wave, an FM square wave with just like the distortion cranked, so I like to do that. Electric Indigo, the big bass sounds and on the stomps, and Electric Indigo is actually a B3 organ that I distorted. And if you think about it, organs are just sine waves. So once again, I'm just taking sine waves essentially, this time a little bit fancier sine waves, and just distorting the crap out of them, and just experimentation. So I always say there's 2 ways to learn how to design bass sounds. One is just raw experimentation with a bunch of distortion and weird filters and stuff like that. And the other way is just to like reverse engineer other people's patches and like presets that you get and learn from them. Because you take apart people's presets that you like, you're going to learn kind of the standard stuff that goes with every bass sound. And you're also going to learn the cool trick that they use to make that bass sound cool. That's kind of how I've learned sound design and how I kind of do sound design. It's not a lot of anything crazy, just besides just coming up with it. Ends up being crazy because after 15 minutes of pulling random knobs and buttons with a bunch of distortion on, I end up with something fairly complex that would be very difficult to reproduce. But because I just kind of wandered there, it doesn't seem complicated to me, and nor did I put a lot of like intelligent effort into making the sound. It's really just me experimenting and having fun and just like yanking knobs around until something sounds cool, which is funny because especially being a teacher, you see a lot of people who are so desperate to make this certain type of sound. They want to sound like Sudden Death. They want to sound like Sullivan King. They want to sound like whoever, right? And it's like it's so hard to get that one thing because those people probably just adventured there, so they don't even know how they got there. And you're trying to follow that random path they took, that's probably going to be really hard. But if you're just back there just having fun and just twisting knobs until something cool happens, you're going to come up with something cool. You're going to have a good time doing it. And then you'll have your own sound too, right? So yeah, that's kind of like my sound design process. I use Serum a bit. I use Phase Plant. I use Phase Plant a lot on the album.
Okay.
I love the disperser. Hey, come here. I love the disperser. It's really cool. It's basically like an all-pass filter. It causes phase shifting, which is really interesting. And I used that quite a bit to give the sounds a little bit more of like an elastic bounce and not be so kind of crunchy. Yeah, I use anything I can. So I got analog synths too, so I've been using those and just putting the same sort of processing that I would put on a Serum patch, OTT, excessive distortion, but I do that on like an analog synth, and I get really cool results and stuff like that from that. If you listen to all the bass sounds on Voyager, those are all analog synth bass sounds, so
right.
Just dressed up with the same dressing as you would put on a Serum patch. And everyone likes to talk crap on analog because straight out of the box it doesn't sound awesome, like it sounds like a basic operator patch or something like that, but like no one gives it the credit of let's put the same sauce we put on our crazy Serum patches as we do on our analog sounds, and you get some really cool stuff that way. But it's just a lot of adventuring and a lot of random stuff. That's part of the voyage for me. It's just like twisting knobs until something cool happens, and it's fun. And I've tried to work myself to the bone and I've tried to like, learn other people's sounds, and it just isn't fun, and it doesn't usually work. I mean, I'm inspired for sure, but yeah, it's just a lot of distortion, EQs, high resonances, weird subtractive detuning and stuff like that. Lots of sine waves, and yeah, nothing really crazy.
Well, okay, I have two songs that stand out to me that I'd love to ask you about.
Yeah.
One of them is okay. So the two two songs are "Aliens" and your Harmony remix. The Closey remix you did. Okay, so
yeah. What about them?
Yeah. So for me, I think I have like a really subjective, like I think the Harmony remix is really sick. But for Aliens, it feels like such a classic sound. Like it's like I was talking, like I was listening with my roommate like earlier before the show, and like I was going through like all the old stuff that I had played. Like I played a lot of your stuff on my radio show back in college, and Aliens, like I put it on and I was just like, dude, I feel like I've heard this like 1,000 times. Like this, I don't know, whether I like right now I don't have like the stream count in front of me, so I don't know how well it's done, but whatever
it did really well. Yeah, it was one of my first songs. I think they go above like 50K on Spotify, which was cool when it came out. But yeah.
So like, what's the story behind that? Because like that, yeah, I the sound design behind that is fucking sick. I personally right now I can't like remember like a certain like timestamp or part that I remember because
yeah, no, I know what you're talking about though. So that song was written during a very tumultuous time of my life. But I was not being healthy, let's say that, and I was living in an unhealthy situation with my friend Austin, who goes by Kinetic Groove.
Okay.
He used to make amazing music, but he ended up getting out of the game for like health reasons because we weren't being healthy people. Started that song together. And he went by Space Cake for a little bit too.
Okay.
He was like signed to Subcarbon and stuff like that, Ganja White Knight's label. But yeah, he's an amazing musician and still one of my best friends. So he ended up going to he went away. So we started that song and we wrote basically the intro and had made some bass sounds for it. And he ended up going away for a year to an inpatient program and stuff like that. And I didn't see him for a year and a half, 2 years after that. And so we had started this song and basically wrote that intro, and he had used a Max for Live arpeggiator with a piano on it to create that do 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 sort of thing, that sort of melody riff that kind of opens up with. And then for the drop, I remember feeling because things were shitty, and I was really learning a lot with Austin, because Austin, Kinetic Groove, was he's one of the best musicians I've ever met. The guy's brain just understands how to make good music. It's crazy.
Sick.
And I felt lost without him, right? Yeah. And I was definitely trying to embody his style and what would he do, kind of. And we had all these bass sounds. So what I did was I just took the melodic pattern from the intro and I put it into the drop, but I took each different note kind of and put it on a different synth that we had made. So I took this 8-note melody and I put each different note on a different synth. And so it goes whoop whoop da 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 blah blah, or whatever. And so that was a really cool creative process, because I remember he always would tell me, he's we've got to keep this same idea throughout the whole song. Which at that time in my music career too, a huge problem with my music is that it was just too busy and too all over the place. And I was trying to put all these ideas into one song when the song only needs one idea, right?
Yeah.
So I really tried to focus in on that, but essentially that came from having we had made a bunch of bass sounds and we hadn't written the drop yet. And so I just kind of put a different note on each different bass sound, and then brought the piano in and out and some other stuff like that. But I just did that, and I remember it as one of those aha moments, because it just sounded so cool. I just spread it out and had that idea, and I did that, and it sounded really, really cool, and I was super stoked. And it was also just a big ode to keeping it simple, which that song really taught me to like keep my music a lot more simple, and it's a lot more enjoyable that way, and I heard a really good analogy about, like, not making your music too complicated. And someone said one time, it was a sandwich is not inherently better just because it has more ingredients.
Right.
In fact, you're more likely to find something you don't like about that sandwich if there's too many ingredients on it,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how that song got made. And Serum had just like came out, I feel like, or just gotten popular, so I was using Serum, and I was super stoked on that. But yeah, it was just kind of like me trying to embody his style. And I remember him telling me to keep everything really simple, and that I did too much. And so I took that one main idea and I sort of just fleshed it out over the drop, and the whole thing came together. And then for the second drop, all I did was rearrange the MIDI notes. Like I put different sounds on different synths. And I was like, I felt like I was just so lazy at the time to do, but like, I did it anyways, because I remember just keep it simple. And also, like I said, I was going through a lot at this time in my life, and like I was just put the song out, just it's done, I'm done with it,
Yeah.
Probably quitting music every other day and stuff like that during that time, and so yeah, I just kind of put it out, and I'm so happy that I did it that way, because it has so much more of a cohesive flow, and it just feels like it makes so much more sense. And like, yeah, it was definitely the big lesson behind that was stick to your idea with music. And the second you get too far away from your idea, you're going to get writer's block, and nothing's going to make sense,
Yeah, that song is yeah, it's very cohesive, and I think maybe that's why it's done so well. It is. I mean, calling it simple is hardly an insult. It's just it's what's the best way to, I also want to come up with a clever analogy, but I'm not exactly clear.
No, dude, but calling music simple, I feel like is a compliment, at least to me.
Yeah,
like, because that's the challenge in today's world, is not to make stuff too complicated. It's not like we have to practice these instruments or record in a studio, and if we want anything, we can throw it in our song and we can play as fast. There's no skill limitation anymore. So the challenge is to keep it simple, because you can just overcomplicate it so fast, so I think that's a huge compliment, to have the willpower to keep your song simple and not do too much,
So on the other hand, I actually feel like Harmony is actually a good example where things got a little bit more complicated, because in that remix,
yes, and that was definitely like me departing from that sort of ideal. You see how the Harmony song, I feel like it could have been a lot simpler, and if it was simpler, it would be better. But I just kind of like added on top, and the song was very simple when it came out, and ode to Closey for being able, like we said, it's a huge compliment to put out simple music and make it good still, simple, like a sandwich. There's nothing better than a good and simple sandwich,
the
grilled cheese is a classic, dude. Most popular sandwich on lot is the grilled cheese for that reason, so like when I did add more to it, it did feel sort of right, and I think that's why people liked that too, is because it was like, oh cool, it's like the next level up. But it would have been cool, and in hindsight, I think it would have been cool to like sort of try to take it in a different direction.
Well, so I don't. Well, I'm not so sure if I was alluding to that. What I meant to say about that song was that I like the complexity of it, and the thing that stands out to me about the Harmony remix that you did was you put the drop lead in like 8 bars before the drop, and it's like basically at full volume, and I love that. Like and I don't know, it's like the I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's like the whoa.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I felt like that was off. I mean, I thought that was off kilter, but it pays off really well, and I would just call that, I guess, not simple, or at least not as simple.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a lot more direction in my music now, which is cool. But yeah, I do like that song. I still play that one. So yeah, that is a fun one. I love Closey. She's such an amazing person.
You sound like you would rather have taken it in a different direction.
Yeah, I would have rather taken it into a more unique direction and a more simple direction. I think it really made it really slam. But hey, yeah, I think all artists feel that way about every piece of art they put out. They would go back and change it. So.
Is there a favorite, or actually is there a least favorite song that you have out?
Yeah, there's this song called "This Space" that I made, in like 2015 with my friend Lucid Vision, and it just like doesn't have a drop, and it's like really weird, and it's like it's just kind of corny sounding, but it's like in my top 5 on Spotify, and people won't stop listening to it, and I hate it. I hate this song so much, bro. Like, I think it's so boring and corny, and it doesn't go anywhere, and like it just keeps getting plays, dude. And I'm like, yo, you guys, I have so much better music out there. Like, please listen to the other stuff, please. Like, but yeah, this Space, dude, I think it's like number 3 on my Spotify right now still, and it came out like 10 years ago, almost like 8 years ago or something like that, maybe 5 years ago, who knows, but like, yeah, it needs to go away. Right? Yeah,
that's really funny to know, dude.
Yeah.
That leads me very well onto another question I have here, which is, do you have a favorite platform for releasing music? There are some new platforms out. I don't know if you're on any of them. I kind of think about like Audius, if that's still a thing right now. I mainly just use
my absolute favorite after the album is BANDCAMP, man.
BANDCAMP? Okay,
like,
BANDCAMP.
Yeah, because people are so awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Because people are so awesome. BANDCAMP is the best because like people have been buying like songs off my album, and I put it up, name your price, and I put the minimum 0. So if you want it, you can go download it for free. But I don't think anyone's downloaded it for free. Everyone's paid $1, $5, $10, and stuff like that. And like BANDCAMP, to give us the opportunity to sell our music online like that is huge, because for $1 you technically bought like 10,000 streams of that song,
Right. Yeah.
And like that helps me out so much as an artist to be able to get this money in. Like I'm able to, because of the BANDCAMP sales from the album, I'm actually able to right away after the album now make a new merch drop that I'm gonna have soon, probably in like the next month.
Okay.
So I was able to make enough funds to do a merch drop, not have to wait for my quarterly check for 0.004 cents per play or something like that,
Yeah.
And I highly doubt the people who paid $1 for my song are ever gonna listen to it 10,000 times, or whatever. So like for BANDCAMP to still have that and do that and give people the option to support artists and stuff like that is so dope, and it's got to be my favorite platform for sure. It does the most for the artist.
That's great to know. It's been making like a weird little underground comeback, I feel like.
Yeah. People use BANDCAMP. You'd be so surprised. Like I feel like Spotify was the meta for a while, but now that I've been seeing a lot of people use other streaming services. A lot of people use Apple Music. Some people I've been finding out use Deezer, which I've never heard of.
Yeah,
a lot of people tell me that they use Tidal.
Oof.
And I just thought that nobody used those platforms anymore, but like people are, and I feel like a lot of people are getting away from Spotify, which is interesting. And I don't feel either way about Spotify. I mean, they don't pay you a lot for your music, but also my music would not be reaching so many people if it wasn't on Spotify.
Yeah.
So like I wouldn't have 500 listeners in New Zealand if it wasn't for Spotify, because I'm not going to ship however many records over there for people to hopefully find in some weird record store,
Yeah, exactly.
So as evil as Spotify can be portrayed as, and how little they pay artists and stuff,
well, it really feels
it's they put our music out there, man.
Yeah, it's just a platform to I feel like it's like a showcasing platform, and you're not really paying, or you're not really getting paid to if you get a reasonable amount of streams, you're still not going to get paid. You are paying them to showcase you.
Yeah, exposure bucks.
Yeah, exactly. Exposure bucks.
Yeah, but it's the saddest part is sometimes we take those exposure bucks.
Yeah.
You're like, thanks.
Well, it's good to
look
know
at like
didn't
Rihanna
option.
Yeah, didn't like Rihanna play the Super Bowl for free or some shit like that?
I actually have no
exposure.
idea.
I thought I heard that or something.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, celebrities do really weird stuff. I mean, that's the most watched sporting event like in America, so
yeah, it would make sense.
Easy way to. No, also though, it's not like enough people knew who Rihanna was. Like I wish I didn't know who Rihanna was. Sort of, like it's I don't know if she needed more exposure. So I don't know.
I don't think she needs more exposure either. Yeah, pretty sure she's a billionaire. Do love some of her songs.
I will say Disturbia is a banger. That one I
Got a couple slappers.
I purchased and listened to on my iPod. Yep. I know I bought the fucking music video. I spent $5 on that music video and I had it on my iPod Nano. So Rihanna.
Oh god, music videos on the iPod Nano. That's
yeah. So can't talk too much shit. I gotta be completely honest. Complete transparency on this podcast.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I got plenty of things jotted down here, man. Do you have any like, or who were we talked a little bit about non-EDM inspirations? Do you have any more, or like really big non?
Yeah, dude, I don't listen to a lot of EDM. Honestly, if you wanted to say like my EDM inspiration list is fairly short at the time. It's kind of like Tie-Dye Kai,
okay,
Break-Ins, Potions, and Super Task.
Is it a lot of local homies, a lot of friends? Like,
yeah, definitely sometimes. But like I said, I don't really listen to a lot of electronic music. But outside of electronic music, like that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from.
Yeah.
I was always a big emo kid, so like Taking Back Sunday, Brand New, Circus Survive, like I said, Under Oath. Are some of the bigger ones that a lot of people would know. A Newfound Glory, Blink-182. That's a lot of my inspiration.
Big. Well, they were an inspiration for me for a little bit.
Yeah, a big inspiration for me are two artists that really broke me out of my shell as a child. Like there's that tipping point when you're like 9 or 10, where you start like finding out about your own music, not just the music that your parents have shown you.
Yeah.
And I had my best friend Kevin, his older brother.
Sick.
I still remember that day in 5th grade. He's like, "You guys quit listening to that shit." I think I was listening to like Green Day or something like that.
Dude,
like, that shit sucks. Come check this shit out. And like I'm listening to Tool in his room, and I was just like, "Oh my god, this is insane!" Like I feel crazy. And then he showed us Wu-Tang directly after that. And he put on like Protect Your Neck, and like I was just like, "What, dude? Like this is so sick." So like Wu-Tang and Tool are definitely big. All those like Brand New, Taking Back Sunday, Circus Survive, Seosin. Stuff like that. I was definitely into a lot of like crazy shit, like a lot of grindcore and stuff as a kid.
Yeah.
And thrash. Like this one band, Heavy Lolo, is one of my favorite bands, and like their music's just ridiculous. The Number 12 Looks Like You was this prog grindcore band I was super into as a kid, and if you go listen to it, the music's just nuts. Listen to like Imagination Express or like Jaywalking Backwards. Like those songs are just like weird. I also have a lot of influence from like post-rock. So like bands like Explosions in the Sky, 65 Days of Static, Godspeed You Black Emperor, Russian Circles, Do Make Say Think, a lot of stuff like that is huge to me, and that's a lot of the stuff that I still listen to and sort of navigate around nowadays. And yeah, I don't know, maybe it's because I make so much electronic music that it just doesn't really get me going a lot anymore.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know, it's just I like it, and I'm not talking shit, but it's like a lot of the same formula, kind of, like intro, build up, drop, build up, drop.
I think EDM particularly is evolving, and right now it's going through some growing pains. I think it's
going through some growing pains right now. I think everyone's just about sick of what's been going on.
Yeah,
and we're ready for like some more stuff.
I think
you listen to Explosions in the Sky. It's like you never know where the song's going to go next, and it keeps building, and it's like and every song kind of has a different arrangement too, and I don't know. It's just really interesting. Yeah.
Thank you, Wallace.
Yeah, she agrees.
Yeah. All I meant to say is like I think we're waiting for a new genre to drop straight up.
Yeah, or just a different way of doing things. I think would be really refreshing. And putting more into like interesting songwriting and not quite the same formula and stuff. And like, no hate on the formula that got us here, you know, but like, I don't know, that's what I would like to see, I guess.
My working theory is that there's so much sound design accessible now that yesterday I was listening to the Excision 2011 Shambhala mixes, and just like I don't know, just like really old Excision stuff, and like he was going crazy with the sound design, and now I think his stuff is a bit more monotone, or whatever the word would be, but either way, what I was getting at is I think a lot of the sound design tools are, I mean, like every day you're seeing new videos about like this new AI tool is going to help you make, you know, a vocal out of your, you know, like it'll turn your farts into fucking Avril Lavigne using AI.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I don't think there's essentially no bottleneck when it comes to what kind of sounds we can make and like how many instruments we can break, as we were talking about earlier. So I genuinely feel like all of the constraints and all of the weight is falling on like, can you arrange, is how like the arrangement is truly I think what needs to evolve, because the sound design is extraordinarily accessible.
Yeah, and I think I agree with you, because it's like there's a lot of juice left to be squeezed out of the arrangement, Orange, you know.
I completely,
like, there's a lot of room to grow there. As to with sound design, dude, like, oh my god, I feel like we've heard everything, and you know, everyone's focusing on sound design. Everyone focuses on creating these insane sounds, and it's more about what you do with those sounds, and you know, is just like a lot of potential that's being slept on. I feel like in music right now.
Yeah.
Which, like I said, like a lot of artists like Tie-Dye Kai and like a lot of those artists I'm into are really breaking down those boundaries, and really like opening things up in a really cool way, which I really, really dig.
Well, in that vein, let me tell you. So we mentioned we might talk about Cosmic Latte earlier. The reason, or I was listening to it before the show, and it brought me back, like, you know, it brought me back, and I remember, you know, exactly, because I saved that album and that was my introduction to your music, and the reason I liked it was because it reminded me so much of Grizz and, like, you know, fusion, and like, you know, if I mentioned how your sound has changed, and I think you've focused it really well, with your sound design being a bit more precise, but it I think in your older in Cosmic Latte there was a lot of like emphasis on trying to, I think, fuse genres together rather than just instruments.
Yeah, I was definitely trying to do that, and like, yeah, definitely, like I said, like felt like I was kind of doing whatever I wanted, and I just, I like doing that, and I definitely want to kind of keep exploring that adventurous side too, but I definitely see the benefit of, like, you know, being identifiable to people too. You know, it makes you more accessible, more, you know, distinct, I feel like. But yeah, I don't know, I was definitely trying to fuse together genres, but I feel like you know, you have to have like a center point too, to a degree. You want to like have traits of other things, but you should have like a center. I don't know, yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about.
So me personally, the part of the reason I am into this genre of music, or bass music, or EDM, is because I see a lot, I see crossovers in the majority of music. So, you know, I would be one of your students who would be like, hey, I want to mix everything, you know, or I want to make I don't know if I'd want to make everything. That doesn't make, like, this doesn't sound appealing.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
But like, you know, you put me on the decks, and like I am extraordinarily motivated to find common traits between genres that absolutely do not belong together. It's another one of those tools and like things that I want to break. So like fusion is something that, you know, when it comes to arrangement, I think fusion is one of the missing links right now for bass music, and for EDM. I really think we need to hear some fusion and crossover to either a different genre or some like Transformers, like fucking ASMR shit.
Yeah, right.
And so that's what I think it needs to happen. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that would be sick. Yeah, we got to do it. Yeah, I guess that's kind of like a little bit of what I was trying to do with like Voyager and stuff like that. Like, here's something different. What was that thing? It's like a now for something different.
Yeah,
I forget. It was like, yeah, it was on like a record or something from back in the day. But Yeah, and that circles back to I feel like a good way to approach that is to have that center. If you keep 8 out of 10 songs on point, that gives you 2 songs where you can be so weird.
Yeah.
And I don't know, a good example. So Skrillex's album Recess. Do you remember the song Doompy Poomp?
I do not.
Probably not. But you go listen to it, dude, because Skrillex made it's got that, it's got that song and it's like, guess who's back, mother, and it's like the crazy dubstep and shit like that, But then he's also got this one song on there called Doompy Poomp, dude, and it's like one of my favorites because it's just like doop 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 doop, and it's the weirdest fucking beat you've ever heard in your life. And it was on his album. And it fit perfectly, but if he did, 7 Doompy Poops, it would have been weird.
Yeah.
Like, what is this guy on? But if you do give the people what they want, give them something to hold on to is a better way to put it.
I see what you mean. I'm understanding your point.
It makes it so much
now.
easier to do whatever you want. Like, let's follow the dress code to a degree, but I'm gonna have that one piece of fucking flair or something that's just hella unique and interesting. Or whatever. And so I still fit the dress code, but I'm also unique, because you don't have to fit the dress code, right? You don't have to wear clothes at all. But if you don't want to wear clothes at all, you're not allowed at the grocery store. And you can go live with a bunch of other people who don't want to wear clothes, and you guys can have your little niche thing going on, and you might be happy there. That might be perfect for you. But you're still not getting into the library, and you can't come within 100 feet of a school. So
literally,
yeah. So there's a respect to the dress code, so people can sort of digest you and feel comfortable getting into it. I feel like, and then it's also your responsibility as an artist to sort of still be unique within the dress code, because we can just be total weirdos and that can be cool too, but sometimes it can be a bit much, so it's nice to kind of rules a bit, and also being very unique in your own sense as well.
There was a really cool a brand of clothing I saw on Instagram a while back. It was called Threadya, I think, and like one of the cooler pieces.
I've seen it, yeah.
I'm not like, I never bought anything from them, but one of the things I really wanted to buy was like a normal looking ass jacket or like a nice looking jacket, and then they had like suit pieces too, but on the inside it was like just like laced with like psychedelic patterns, and I was like, that is one of the coolest. Like, yeah, that's exactly
what I'm talking about. Yeah. A classic looking jacket, and then you open it up and you look inside and it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
that's fake, dude. And you mentioned Stevie Ray Vaughan earlier too, and this is a thing too that I always say, like, when it's kind of like shredding on your guitar is a little bit overdone. Like, to shred all the time is just excessive, and nobody really wants to listen to that. Nobody ever listens to Dragon Force for their own enjoyment. They listen to it because they play guitar, or they're trying to be like, whoa, that was a lot of notes, right?
Yeah.
But like Stevie Ray Vaughan did such a good job of playing the right notes 80% of the time and keeping it simple 80% of the time. Big bends, big vibratos, and then for half of a second, maybe 1 or 2 seconds, dude would just rip into the guitar and shred for like 2 seconds. And then it's like, holy shit, he's good, But he didn't have to just like shred all the time. It's like, another way to think about that whole concept too musically is like vocabulary words, big words, right? It's like, if you use big words all the time and your entire sentence is, well, shut up. If your entire sentence is a bunch of vocabulary words, you sound kind of pompous, like, well, the you sound like, but like, if you throw in a vocabulary word here and there, then you look cool and smart,
Absolutely,
so like, it's about using that really uniqueness in a sparing way where it's palatable for people, and then once you get a bunch of people in, you feel like you have a dedicated fan base, you can kind of look around and go like, do you guys want to get weird for this next release, or like, really go out there, and then you could do that. But otherwise, I feel like it's just like distracting, and you can lose people. And I don't know, for someone who grew up as such a contrarian and such a hipster and stuff like that, I just find it so funny that I keep coming back to like, maybe we should be a little bit normal, you know?
I know exactly how you mean, dude. That's great.
When you're just all over the place, it's just so weird, you know. It's just like, okay, well, that was special, that was interesting, you know, that was cool. But like, you know, I don't know. It's just a thing for me too, you know. Like a lot of my favorite bands, like Blink-182, for example, if they would have just gone completely weird and crazy and really complex and super fast, you know, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been as digestible for me, you know, to get into and stuff like that. And I feel like you have to have that sort of like staircase for people. You know, you can't just expect them to take one giant step into the weirdness with you. You kind of got to take steps there. But then you can get a lot done and do a lot of cool stuff, you know. So yeah,
dude, absolutely. I'd love to show you my I'm the production manager for a local band here in Fort Collins. And they're like a rock band, and it's like I don't, you know, I do this EDM thing, but it sounds like you might be interested in like the stuff that they do too. So I'd love to show you their stuff. And
dude,
see
I
what
love
you
going
think.
out to rock shows and stuff like that. Yeah,
It's been really cool. Like I've been going out almost every week now to these guys' shows, and it's a totally different scene and a different experience. But it's only been helping my essentially my music journey has been learning and exploring other genres and understanding them better. Helps me grow in the genre that I want to understand the most.
yeah,
But anyway,
yeah, it's cool to, yeah.
No, sorry, I didn't.
No, you're good. Yeah, it's cool to like branch out like that. There's so much to learn, you know.
So
from other genres, yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
No, my question for you was, so like for your latest album, I've never put out an album, and it feels like the landscape is like changing a lot quickly. And what do you have any like advice, or like did you learn anything like pretty crucial from your latest release?
Yeah, well, a lot. Just talking about albums, so many of my industry friends were like, "Don't put out an album. Don't put out an album. That's too much for people. They're not going to be able to. They're not going to pay attention to all that."
Yeah.
And every one of them was so wrong, because like I think that you should do whatever you want to do and your intention.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. So everyone wants to hear, you know, one song or whatever. That's what everyone's saying, right? You know, well, everyone only is going to listen to one song. But here's also the thing is that people love mixes. People listen to mixes, hour-long mixes all the time, and they love it because they just can put on something and not have to worry about finding something else to listen to in 3 or 4 minutes, right? So like, it's so funny how everyone told me don't put out an album, or a lot of people did, you know, industry people mostly, were like, don't put out an album, people won't listen to half of it, you know. And they were all so wrong, because I had the intention of putting together like this journey, this sort of mix that is seamless and flows, right? So many people treated it like that, which was awesome. And I didn't even really intend for it to go out like a mix, but so many people just like had hit me up and were like, dude, I just put on track 1 and I just let it play, dude, and I know I'm good for an hour. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. I didn't even think about that, like, you know. Yeah, so I think that, like, you know, putting out whatever you want to do is such a good idea, because as long as you have an intention behind that, people will catch on to it. And, you know, if you keep doing what everyone tells you to do, you know, you're just going to be a part of the run of the mill, you know, you're just going to be another face in a crowd. But if you try to sort of step out and, girly girl, come here. Hey. Shh. If you do your own thing, you'll step out. Hey, come on. Wallace, come here. Wallace, come here. Come here. She's mad. Everyone's coming home right now, I think, from like work or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, don't worry about it.
Hey, Wallace, come here. Yeah, but like if you do your own thing, oh, dude, she's too weak. Hang on 1 second. Hey, girl, come here. There you go, good girl. Yeah, she's also blind, so she gets really freaked out by stuff.
Oh, that makes sense.
Don't ask me how I ended up with a blind chihuahua. Yeah. Come here, baby. Here, come here.
Oh, if she's a chihuahua, she's probably really aggressive then.
Oh, yeah, she's actually really sweet, yeah, but she's also blind, so she gets really scared about things. She's like, are we gonna die? Yeah, if I leave her alone in a room, she starts crying instantly. Aww. So she has to go with me everywhere.
Aww.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have your own intention behind something, just follow it, because that's how new paths are blazed. You know, and if you have an intention, it has a meaning to it, and other people are going to catch on to that meaning. You know, and you have to sort of push it, put it out there, and stuff like that. But you know, just do whatever you feel is right, man. Your gut is always right. I always feel like your gut is like your fourth dimensional self, you know, like your guardian angel or whatever, trying to tell you what to do, because it knows the timeline and it knows what different like universes realities you can go down. So it's like, you know, always trust your gut. And if you have an intention behind something, follow it and push it, because that's really what art's all about. You know, art's definitely not about just doing what's popular. That's how you cash in on art, possibly, but probably not even too, you know.
Right.
So yeah, you know, like everyone said don't put out an album, that's a bad idea, and then I did it, and it was a great idea.
That's so interesting, especially like, dude, like, what do you, so albums are just dead, I guess? Like, okay, like,
no, dude, you write it like a mix. Write it like a mix, so people can just start at track 1 and listen to the whole thing.
You know, good point. So I did notice when I played Chaka, I didn't notice it the first time, but when I played it on the intro, you bled it. Did you bleed in from Electric Indigo into Chaka?
I bleed in from an interlude.
Okay, sweet. Okay.
Yeah, so the interlude has the first hit in interlude is the end of Space Blaster, and the last hit of the interlude is the beginning of Chaka.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. Well, I completely noticed that the second time I listened to it.
Nice.
Yeah. So it felt like it immediately it feels like, oh shit, there was something before this, but you know, I'll get that like later. But
I love that it's got replay value like a video game. You notice different things the more times you play it through. Yeah. Hell yeah. Sick. I didn't even intend to do that, but dope. I love that.
Okay, well, okay, so that's cool. Well, it's weird to me that I mean, I guess it's not surprising, but again, if the mentality there seems a bit odd, like, okay, well, if albums or people only have, you know, attention spans for EPs, like I don't think albums should be a dead art form or anything like that. That seems
and I understand.
Ridiculous.
I understand putting out lots of singles and EPs. If you make music that's more for clubs, you know, or like DJ centric music, if you're making like DJ centric dubstep, you know, and you make sick bangers, but they're all just different sick bangers, like, you know, maybe don't do an album. Maybe that is better. If you know, if you want to try to tell a story that's, you know, and I'm not throwing shade on like club music and stuff like that. That's where this all comes from, right?
Right.
But like, if you do kind of want to write more songs and tell more of a story, you know, or across more genres and stuff, I mean, an album is a great choice because it can kind of stay interesting. And I do actually I feel like Effin has been crushing it lately. He's definitely someone who I've been listening to and enjoying. But like he's got an album coming out. And my buddy showed it to me, and it's like he's more of definitely like, I feel like more of like a festival, like club based type dude. At least from what I've seen, I could be wrong, but he wrote like, you know, drum and bass, dubstep, house was all the different songs, like kind of like that. I don't know if that was him exactly, maybe it was somebody else's album, but you know, like kind of like, even if you do that, like, you know, branch out a little bit on the album. I think that's what albums are for, you know, like once again, go to Pink Floyd Animals, you know, like they wrote like kind of like 5 very different songs. They were all themed off of animals, like, you know, and like weird stuff. So like have a direction and kind of do something different. It's a great place to kind of tell a story or write a movie, you know. It's almost like sometimes I feel like, you know, it's like, you know, those TV shows, like, well, it's like SpongeBob, for example, right? SpongeBob was a series, as if like, you know, I'm releasing singles and EPs or whatever, but then there's the SpongeBob movie, you know? And it's like, that's the album. Like, this is where SpongeBob goes to New York City, which is crazy for SpongeBob, you know?
This is, SpongeBob is one of my favorite cartoons. Like, I still watch it.
Dude, it still slaps. Yeah. It's very comforting to watch. Yeah. Yeah, you know, and it's really cool to do that. And I would hope that a lot of other artists would follow suit. I mean, I saw Closey just dropped an amazing album. Of the Trees' last album was so good.
It feels like the EPs are kind of the, in my opinion, it feels like the EPs are, they're kind of like this newer thing where they're an option that I don't think I considered or most people did consider before, because I always thought what you would do is you would write your album, which is like generally your whole creative expression. However, then I thought it was more of like an 80 or like an 80-20, maybe like an 70-30, 60-40 if you're really pushing it. But like, you know, a lot of times I feel like you would listen to or you'd hear someone on the radio and then kind of realize like, you know, like not all of their music is like this, but like they have like certain radio bangers and certain like, you know, stuff like that. So I always thought that you were, you know, putting out singles because you knew that was going to be the heater, and then that was trying to like lead, you know, like, you know,
into the album,
shepherd people and, you know, correctly into the right spot.
So that's actually something funny that distribution companies kind of, I feel like maybe we just all noticed it, but like it's called a waterfall release, which is what I did with Ghost Ride the Spaceship, where out of 10 songs, technically 8 with Voyager and the interlude, right? Kind of being weird songs. Yeah. There's kind of like eight real songs on there, right?
Yeah.
And I singled out 4 of them.
Which ones?
So I did, actually I think we ended up skipping one, but we meant to do 4. So we did Astro Jones, Electric Indigo, and Gassed Up, and we were supposed to do My Sunshine too, but we had a problem with the distribution and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
But you were gonna single out half the album essentially.
Yeah, that's
over like a month and a half period. So that's a lot of singles there too. So you can still do the singles. And I also like what you were saying about like the rock albums, right? They had like the hit song, they had the fast song, but like Blink-182, for example, they always had like a slow sad song. There was one slow sad song on every record, right? Yeah. Stay Together for the Kids or Adam Song or something like that. You know?
Even Tool, you know, Tool, like what they got put on the radio, like is not what they truly represent in their albums, you know.
They wrote Sober and Schism, but then they also wrote Message to Harry Manback, you know,
and The Pot, which is like, I don't know, like that's I don't know how
that's never going on the radio, you know. It's like 9 minutes long or whatever, right? And it's cool to be able to do that. And those are some of your favorite songs, and that allows you to grow with an artist and, like, you know, start off at the surface and then be like, well, I'm into the deeper stuff, kind of like with Star Wars, right? You know, you get caught up in the first movies, and then you're like, well, I'm gonna start watching Mandalorian and Obi-Wan, and then, you know, you're watching
fuck yeah
I'm watching the Clone Wars, then I'm playing Knights of the Old Republic, and now I'm reading the novels, right, about Darth Nihilus and, you know, the sorts of stuff like that, where it's like the deep lore in your music too, you know, where it's like, this is the surface level stuff. So if you're trying to get into Homemade Spaceship, you know, here's Astro Jones or whatever, kick dust. But then, like, you know, if you really want to dive deeper, check out some of this weirder stuff here, like Bedbug Mullet and and Voyager and stuff like that, you know. So I don't know, that's something cool that I love about nerdy stuff. And if I could do anything, I would make nerdy sci-fi bass music, you know.
Absolutely.
For all my Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering players out there, and, like, you know, the people who are really into lore and, like, you know, love the storylines of Japanese RPG video games and stuff, and, like, Dune and all that stuff, you know. So much to it.
Dune is on my Kindle, but I haven't cracked into it yet.
Oh, dude, Dune the book is rough. So in the book, it spends like 700 pages just like kind of like
I heard
setting up this whole galactic world and like how everything works. And these people are at feud with these people, and these people are mad at these people because of this thing, and these people are in an alliance. And then like the last 500 pages out of like 1,200 pages is like an insanely dope story. But the book is intense, and there's a couple books too, so it goes deep.
I heard it was just basically Dune. Like not anti Star Wars, but it was like kind of like anti.
A lot of people say that George Lucas just ripped off Dune to make Star Wars. He made a simpler, more palatable Dune, more focused Dune, right? He took Dune, and instead of having it be about, you know, galactic, like political galactic shit and war and stuff like that, he made it more of like a love story, you know.
I don't and as from what I don't know enough about Doom, I don't know if I'd agree with that.
What do you mean about like
if he ripped it off too much or entirely?
Yeah, people say that. People say that. I don't know. I'm not gonna be the judge there.
Are you big? Did you read the Dune books? Or
I did. I read them a long time ago, like right when I was like kind of like in like my early 20s and stuff like that. And to be honest, I kind of just like, it's one of those situations. I remember reading those books and being like going 20 pages in and like, wait, what happened? Like, I don't think I actually read any of this. I didn't comprehend any of it. I was just kind of looking and then flipping the page when I felt like I was done with it. But like, yeah, because it drags, dude. It drags for sure a little bit, but and it's really cool. It's all important and stuff. But yeah.
Got you. This leads. Do you have any books or like tutorials that you'd recommend? I mean, speaking of books and stories and shit. Also,
my favorite books are Kurt Vonnegut books.
I would. I'm just moving on because otherwise I would talk to you about Star Wars for about 2.5 hours.
Nice, so, love that. No, but my favorite author is Kurt Vonnegut for sure.
Okay.
I've got a little Kurt Vonnegut tattoo on me. But like I love like Slaughterhouse-Five and Sirens of Titan, and like I love how it plays with reality and multiple realities and time travel and like all these interesting concepts. Like one of his books, Cat's Cradle, is all about this super weapon, this thing someone invented called Ice 9. And if you drop Ice 9 into one tiny drop of Ice 9 into any body of water, and it will instantly all turn into ice. Okay. So obviously it becomes a super weapon because if somebody was to drop this into the ocean, all life would cease to exist. So like there's all sorts of crazy weird concepts. Sirens of Titan, I don't even want to get into. It's all this weird Martian, all this crazy stuff, and this guy ends up going to like live on like the moon of Saturn by himself. Like it's crazy, and it's really cool. Slaughterhouse-Five is all about this character Billy Pilgrim, who essentially keeps getting transported in between his own timeline, fourth dimensionally. And so like in one moment he'll be in like in World War II and like Dresden bombings and stuff like that, and like he's getting bombed, and then all of a sudden like he gets bombed, he closes his eyes and he wakes up and it's 50 years in the future and he's an orthodontist in Germany or something like that. And then also he ends up getting abducted by aliens, and he'll be like in the middle of being an orthodontist or in the middle of war, and then all of a sudden he wakes up and he's abducted by aliens, and he's in an alien zoo. He's a human exhibit at the alien zoo. Which actually, when I say that out loud, that sounds like a cool album name, honestly. The human exhibit at the alien zoo.
I love that. Write that down. Quote it.
Yeah. Oh, I love those books, man, and that's always been really inspirational to me. Just the world building, again, world building is one of my favorite things in the world, and I think it's so cool to create an entire like ecosystem and characters and people and world and stuff like that.
Dude, I'm kind of an idiot. I somebody told me that they're like young when I was like at least 20 or 21 at the time, and somebody told me that their younger brother was into world building like as a hobby or as an art form, and I was never considered that at all. Like, what do you mean world building? Like, we have a world.
Yeah, no, I think back, and it's funny, I always remember like drawing like world maps and like creating different continents in my notebooks as a kid and stuff like that. So it was like
it felt like it did feel like an unlocked or like a locked part of my imagination. Like I can see myself as a kid obviously like really getting into imaginatory stuff, but at some point my brain like I felt like I was also trying to pursue like an artistic career at this point in my life, but like the concept of like taking time to construct like a lot of lore like behind shit, like I just didn't have the patience for any of that at the time. So I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're building a world? That doesn't make sense to me. We got that would mean that would take so much time.
Oh yeah. We got some free time here. Yeah, dude, I love it. I think it's so cool. I love anyone who's done it, and it's just like, once again, it sort of takes you out of your reality and lets you live somewhere else. Which is really cool. And it's a huge thing that's like I love for like feeling creative or maintaining my mental health is like, let's go into this world. Like Starfield just dropped. I don't know if you're playing that or not.
Yeah, well, but, like, I'm not playing it. No, I'm not. But
I'm obsessed. Like I built my own spaceship, and as ironic as that is, and like I love just walking around it, man. And like I just like I don't even do a mission or anything like that. I just go like I'm gonna go hang out in the captain's quarters for a little bit, look out the porthole, maybe fly around for a little bit, and
Okay,
all
wait,
sorts of
wait.
stuff like that.
You sound like you would love this game. Have you ever heard of Stellaris?
No, it sounds cool though.
Dude, no way. Okay, so have you heard of Civ? Like
No.
Civilization? Like
Civilization,
yeah,
Sid Meier's Civilization,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, like they're not made by the same people at all, but Stellaris is essentially like a galaxy-wide civilization game, and it's like fucking dense. And like I really like this game, but like I don't feel like I'm smart enough to play because I always fucking lose, just like I always fucking lose in Civ. So like,
Dude, there's so many people who take it so seriously. Yeah.
So
that's another thing with video games. I play a lot of video games, but I don't do a lot of the online gaming against people because I just don't have enough. I take music seriously. I don't take that seriously. So I love games where I can just kind of like follow the storyline. Like Last of Us is a perfect example. Like I just love the story and just playing through it.
I do too. I'm not actually. I actually really don't fuck with multiplayer games because they feel like a time sinker to me. Whereas I really try and stick with story-driven games. Like generally, like I really like single-player games, and Stellaris is you're mostly competing with like an AI and shit like that. But the reason I lose at it is because like it's just like dense. Like it's like a game of chess, but you know, civilization style, where it's like, oh, I didn't really consider that an interdimensional fucking being would wipe out my my main planet hub, and like all of my resources are no longer being like evenly fucking distributed. It's like I don't know. It's just like it's talk about world building. Like it's like it's another way of thinking.
Yeah. It's cool. I have the patience for it. I love it.
But yeah, no, I'm not a multiplayer game guy. I really because you can just spend a lot of time. You can spend infinite amount of time playing multiplayer games, and like you're literally just competing for numbers. I really just want to play shit that gives me a story, like a start and an end.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, because if you could just keep playing forever, it's just a huge it's not good. Also, I like to get something out of it, you know, like obviously like playing like Kingdom Hearts and other like story-based games like that. Like, you know, I've learned a lot about storytelling and shit like that, and also been very inspired. But like, I don't get inspired by Call of Duty, you know?
No.
And like also like even some games, like I was playing this game for a bit, Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley taught me how to like manage money. Which is crazy.
Nice. That's crazy.
like you know, like cool. I made $10,000. We're gonna spend that $10,000 to make more money, not save that money and sit there. You know, and it's like, what kind of systems can I get set up to make money and be smarter and you know grow better? And so like that video game like taught me a lot about like business, which is crazy. You know, but like. I like to get something out of games, and I don't really watch TV a lot too, so it's like it's kind of like my downtime thing. But
well, yeah, no, I don't. Well, for me, it depends on the TV. I don't like. Well, I think I agree with you. I mostly try and get like a nice story out of it. I've never played. You said Kingdom Hearts, right?
Yeah. Kingdom Hearts is like this game. It's like got this character Sora, and it's a Disney game actually.
Well, I've seen Mickey Mouse in that. I remember the T-shirts everywhere.
Sora,
dude.
Donald, and Goofy go travel to go save the princesses from each world.
Okay.
And like the story, like at least in the first two games, it gets a little crazy in between games 2 and 3. But the story is just it's so like heroic, and it gets you so like amped up, you know, and just like how Sora's so selfless and he just wants to, you know, destroy the Heartless and stuff like that. It's just like, I don't know, I think it's so dope, and it just always inspired me a lot as a kid, still inspires me as an adult and stuff like that. So yeah, I love getting that kind of shit out of games and stuff. So
yeah, that sounds pretty sick. I didn't play a lot of video games when I was younger. I'm still like kind of like rediscovering like so many games as I'm getting older and stories. So that's why I'm asking, because I'm probably gonna play Kingdom Hearts now.
Dude, yeah, it's sick. Yeah, it's old school, it's fun, but like it's got a really cool story, man, and it keeps you hooked the whole time.
One of my favorite ones that I've discovered has been BioShock. I don't know if you're a fan.
Oh, BioShock? Absolutely, dude.
Okay.
Yeah. I never really like played it more than I played the first one and I loved it, but I never played the other ones. I don't know why.
I've only played the first one too, so we're on the exact same page.
yeah, but that game had a great story to it. I remember, with like choices and stuff, which is cool.
All right, so speaking of controllers, I kind of want to ask you. I have a couple DJ questions for you.
Yeah.
How do you like to perform live?
I use Ableton and an APC 40 because I'm a terrible DJ.
Okay, sweet.
And so I use that, and also like, like when you're mixing like house or like more club-based stuff, it's usually a lot more minimal than like electro soul and the kind of music that I make. So it gets a lot harder to DJ and transition because there's so much more going on in the beginnings and ends of all the songs. So I have to use Ableton to sort of take out loops and stems for my songs to lead in and transition with and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So
I've never
I do that. Also,
I've never done that before, or like done it that way.
Well, it's all my own music that I play. I rarely play anything less than an 80% original set.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that 100% original sets are better or anything like that, but that's just what I do.
Yeah.
You got to think it is pretty crazy that electronic music is the only genre in which you can play half of other people's music as a headliner somewhere.
Yeah, actually.
It's weird. Like Foo Fighters don't play half covers in their sets, like nobody does that, which is interesting. But I just like, and I respect other people's music and how they do it, and they're bringing an energy and a vibe, but like, I'm trying to like really get my point across, I guess.
My short opinion on that is that you can flip as a DJ in extraordinarily creative ways. I think you can play an entirely unoriginal set that is completely original, but you have to fucking
you're DJing really
but
good,
like you have to deliver, and like I think that's something that a lot of people like. There's a standard that I'm going to hold you to, and I feel like that's like the debate, or like that's the spicy opinion right there, is the fucking standard that fucking I would hold you to in order to like put on a fire DJ set and completely unoriginal.
Exactly. And I just go like, I kind of like I set up my set, I set up this kind of journey, right? And I have different groups of songs, so like I'll have like maybe some more vibeier songs in a group versus heavier songs, and if I feel the urge to like swap out the heavier songs for the vibeier songs or something like that, I'll do that. So I can still have a little bit of control in reading the crowd. But I make a lot of live versions of songs, so just with the guitars and flutes taken out, so I can play those, and also edit them a little bit. I cut out some dead space and stuff like that here and there. I make a lot of live versions. I pull a lot of stems out, and I just play out a session view on an APC 40. Is kind of like what I like to do, and that's kind of like how I do my live show. I run my guitar through a virtual amp in Ableton, which is nice, so I don't have to bring a big pedal board or an amp or anything like that. The live show is pretty simple. I used to try to make it as complicated as possible, and I've discovered that that's obviously a pain in the ass.
Do you have like an amp or a rig system that you would use if you would, or do you just mainly?
Oh, dude, yeah, I have. Yeah. Dude, I've got.
I'm a gearhead. I'm a gearhead. I want to hear if you.
I've got like 30 guitar pedals. I've got like a couple amps. I've got a Fender amp. I've got a Mesa Dual rectifier. I've got a crazy amount of pedals that I'm constantly swapping in and out of my pedal board. I'd probably use my Mesa live if I wanted to bring a $3,000 amp setup with me to every show.
Oh no!
Yeah. And also you start using real gear like that, like my virtual amp is never going to get a loose tube or unbiased or something like that,
Right.
As to where that vintage nice gear, shit breaks all the time, especially on the road. You can get vintage, you can get real nice gear to last forever if you keep it in your basement the whole time.
Like a really clean studio,
Yeah, but if you're bringing that shit on the road through airports and getting checked around by baggage people and stuff like that shit's gonna break eventually. So and that's something else I've learned is, especially working at a studio, is that we have these SSL consoles and we have this really nice mic preamps and these Neves and these APIs and stuff like that. It should be breaking all the time.
Yeah.
What never breaks is my Neve plugin.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I have a Korg MS-20 synth, and it's just got these really noisy pots, and it's got these really noisy filters, and they crack and stuff like that. And it's funny because I have an MS-20 sitting on my desk, but I use the Arturia plugin version more than I use the actual real synth. Because,
okay, for sure.
It's just because like every time I record something dope with the analog one, it'll click or pop or something during the recording because the pot is low or something like that.
It's okay, by the way. We love Wallace.
Dude, Wallace, we love you, but you gotta shut up. Here we go. Here we go. Come here. Dude, you gotta see her. She's like running around in circles, freaking out, walking out in front of the door. All right. Yeah. Hey, girl, come here. Come here. Wallace, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. It's okay. It's okay. Come here. All right, here you go. She needs to sit on my lap. No, she's not okay. Yeah. That analog gear is really cool and you get a really dope sound out of it, and like there's something definitely special about it, but the reliability of it is definitely a huge con.
Yeah, no, well, I was just wondering, and like I said, I'm a production managing for a rock band, and it's just in my head recently I've kind of been debating like the viability of bringing like a semi decent amp around and like running it through a monitor versus just using everything virtual, and it's like. Personally, I'm team virtual all the way, but like there's something about working in the rock industry where I'm just kind of like, all right, like they're like I'm running an electric guitar. Like,
Yeah, you'd be surprised though how many, like, a lot of modern metal bands, they don't use amps anymore. They all use plugins on their records and stuff.
I don't think I'd be that surprised, but I don't know how I feel about it.
I mean, you get so much more versatility and you get so much more you can do with it, which is crazy.
I agree there too. It's like I have no disagreements. It's just like change bad.
Yeah. Well, don't fix it if it ain't broken too, So
well, that too. No, I don't. My Neanderthal brain is kicking in. Fucking mean.
No, I get you. Yeah.
And hi Wallace.
Hi, Wallace. She's mad. We're talking about you.
Yeah.
You okay now? Yeah. Okay. Now she's okay.
She's got a perfectly good amplifier.
Oh yeah, she doesn't need any amplification.
Nope.
Bark out those high frequencies, no problem.
So I've never DJ'd with an MPC, so you run your entire set through Ableton then?
Through Ableton, APC, yeah. MPC is like some old vintage gear.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
Okay. Cool. How do
APC is just a controller.
How do you? I can't. I know that you can DJ with Ableton Live. Like I'm pretty proficient in Ableton Live set, but like how do you go about DJing your like full fledged 3-minute songs in an Ableton Live set and like turning that into an hour set?
Deck A to deck B, deck A, deck B, deck A, deck B. And I just kind of line them up in order, and I just kind of go left to right.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
I have like cue points set up and stuff like that. Yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
Got you. Okay, nice. Yeah. Okay, and then
like I said, I used to try to make it as complicated as possible, and that was a terrible idea. All of a sudden, I'm up on stage and like a filter won't turn off, and I'm going through different pages of mappings trying to figure out where the filter is and what's going on, and like, oh god, I'll never do that again. Yeah.
No, okay, cool. Yeah, very, very cool. I'm considering that. I'm still like, when it comes to my sets, I still like to do a lot of virtual DJ stuff, and like, or
yeah,
I can use Pioneer gear pretty well. I've like been working on that for a while, and then I've also been working, or my whole shtick kind of started in virtual DJ and like virtual softwares and stuff like that. So I'm like just like kind of evolving with my time as an artist.
Yeah, whatever you know best, man. Yeah, that's what I always say. Yeah.
Okay, so question. How do you, all right, so I imagine that you probably have like racks, sounds that you've come up with, patched, and you taking the time to sound design and that you want to use in future. You come up with sounds that you like. How do you organize those sounds? Because I personally am a terrible, like, when it comes to music specifically, I do not know how to organize like the sounds that I've created.
I use the collection system in Ableton. They introduced that in like Ableton 10, and it's a lifesaver. I can just right click and I have like 8 different collections: drums, bass, vocals, instruments, synths, effects, audio effects.
Okay.
Is how I do it. And I just right click on anything that I like and I save it. And I'll say this too: one of the best things that you can do to make you a better producer is to find a bunch of your sounds and sounds you like, whether they're presets or sounds you've made or loops or drum sounds, and get like default setups and get a bunch of stuff saved into a folder. So for example, like when I go to write a drop, I'm not making any bass sounds. Most of the time I'm just using bass sounds I've made during sound design sessions that I have saved.
Okay.
And I'll have like a MIDI line, and I'll just start slapping different basses I've made onto that MIDI line and seeing which one sounds best.
That seems
and usually
huge,
something
actually.
just clicks,
Yeah.
But if you have to sit there and try to make every sound, you're gonna lose steam really fast. So
it also seems like a very smart way to stay true to your sound productively.
Yes, and you also get more continuity out of your music that way. Yeah. So it's like, you save as many presets you like and sounds you've made into a folder, make sure they're all ready to go. Have like a default drum kit with like a default kick and a default snare and hi-hat set up, so you don't have to go searching for those every time you want to write music. And then you can just all right, what should I have for a chord layer here? And you can just scroll through all these really cool pianos and pads and synth things that you've made and stuff like that, and figure out which one sounds best there without having to make it all, So that's a huge, huge thing. So it's made me be able to like produce way faster and finish way more songs.
That does sound very huge. And so there's Ableton collection system. I'll have to remember that. Is it like the grouped, like the colors thing, can you just sweet, I just haven't done that yet, or like whenever I do it, just have it.
Spend a day doing it. It takes you can do it for 10 minutes, you can do it for 5 hours, which is a cool thing. So if you just want to like load up Serum and download some presets off Splice and start taking them apart and saving the ones you like and changing them so they fit what you want and stuff, and then just just go from there. And then whenever you make sounds, I always tell people that they should have like sound design templates and just have like a session for sound designing in, so you can crack open your computer for anywhere from 5 minutes to 5 hours, right? And just start messing around with Serum or messing around with the operator, and if you make any cool sounds out of that, just save them. Next time you go to write a song, you're going to be really awesome sounds to play with. And it's going to make the songwriting process easier and funner, so.
That sounds very, thank you for the advice. I'm going to take that.
Yeah, do that. I always say, if you ever worked in the back of house at a kitchen or a restaurant or whatever, we prep our veggies, right? We prep stuff. We do prep in the kitchen before the dinner rush, right? And here the dinner rush is the creative rush. And, say a lot of meals come with a house salad, right? And so before the dinner rush, you're going to go and peel a bunch of carrots, slice a bunch of cucumbers, chop up a bunch of lettuce, you're going to get that stuff ready. So in the dinner rush, anytime anyone orders a house salad, you can just grab a couple things out of a bin and throw it in a bowl and you're good to go. But imagine if every time somebody ordered a house salad in the middle of the dinner rush, you had to chop slice a tomato and slice a cucumber, peel a carrot and all that stuff. Like, you're going to be in the weeds really fast. So you might as well take care of all that stuff beforehand. So when the creative rush hits, you just have all these tools to jump through and all these cool sounds to jump through. And you're just kind of putting, cucumbers and tomatoes and lettuce and stuff in a bowl, and you can experiment way faster and get a lot more results.
You're killing me with the analogies today, my dude.
Thanks, man.
I'm fucking learning so much because, I'm just a visual learner, I guess, and that's crazy. Okay, yeah, no, that makes so much sense in my brain. And I have worked in, recently I've been working in, the back of a kitchen, or, you're right about that. We just chop our shit up. Well, and, I've had prospects of opening my own fucking business one day and working in the back of a kitchen, and fucking just taught me. I was there's no end result without literally the equal amount of preparation. You just can't run efficiently. So that's it took me a very long time to grasp musically. So I do remember for a very long time, every time I wanted to design a song or start a song, I thought, this has to be fresh, this has to be new, this has to be something that I've made.
Oh, absolutely not.
And
yeah.
I would be, you know, and immediately it's so quick and so simple. You just lose yourself in the sound design process, and the inspiration for the original song is gone. And it's part of the reason I started the channel. But like, it's just like trying to like really understand the process of what producing was. It's really it's hard breaking out of that loop, but once you do, it's extraordinarily freeing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice. It just makes it easier. You know, infinite options again, you know, is overwhelming. So it's nice to be like, well, these are my options. These things, you know, or they're, this is what I do. This is my band, you know, or these types of things. And yeah, it's way easier.
So I guess I think I can see the end of the podcast, but there's still a couple things I want to ask you, if that's cool with you, man.
Yeah, for sure.
This the first one is kind of about, are you a full-time, I guess, musician, would you call yourself, or a full-time music industry?
I mean, yeah, I guess, because I teach as my side job. So like, I mean, my income is kind of split between shows and teaching, about 50-50.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess you would. I don't do anything else that's not music related. So
gotcha. No, I was just wondering about that, because the nowadays I feel like in the scene it can be very varied.
Yeah, and you know, it's like, you know, I if I was touring nonstop, I wouldn't have time for a job.
Yeah.
But I probably wouldn't have had time for this. You know, probably be at the airport right now.
Yeah.
You know, it's I just gotta, you know, just keep them busy. But yeah, mostly all music stuff. I don't really do anything else that's not music related. But I do the teaching, and I do mixing and mastering, and I'll even like produce some songs for some people and stuff like that. I'll produce. I've produced songs for like hip hop artists and stuff like that. I've written like pop punk songs for people before and stuff like that. So I try to stay busy. It's all music. Fortunately, it took a while to get there, but it's also hella inconsistent. Sometimes I wish I just had a job that paid me a steady paycheck. It's mostly music stuff, but not just all homemade Spaceship.
Gotcha. No, and my next question, I mean, and that was kind of leading into like whether or not working in the industry or how much working in the industry has affected your time for like performance skills, and whether or not that's like affected your sound. Okay, so more so this, does working on your brand nowadays take away like too much or a significant portion of like your creative ability or creative time and process?
No, it helps. And I used to think that it would. Okay. So I used to think all the busy work of working on a brand and coming up with imagery and designing merch and all that stuff would distract me from my music, but it actually makes it better.
Okay.
And it actually keeps me more focused.
Could you dial me in a bit?
Yeah, so like I love to be creative, and I'll ride my creative wave whenever it comes, right? But that could come, you know, nonstop for a week straight, or it could come not at all for a whole week, you know? So I've really found this nice stride of when the creative current is there, I ride it and I go. But then when it's not there, you have to stay productive in the music industry. With any business you start, you have to work every day, right. You know? Yeah. So rather than forcing myself to work and be creative on days when I don't feel creative, that's when I do the busy work. That's when I do the brand outlines. That's when I design merch. That's when I, reach out for publication stuff or whatever, you know? So whenever I'm not feeling creative, I just do all that work, and it's actually a lot of fun, and it keeps me busy and stuff like that. So
interesting. Yeah, no, it's because you really can apply as little or as much of creative outlet as you want to in that type of work. Because I think there's a pattern to follow, especially when it comes to like marketing algorithms and stuff like that.
Yeah. And you got to study the algorithms too and stuff like that, which is kind of annoying, but it's just part of it. So it's just, yeah, you know, not everything's dope. You know, even if you want to go snowboarding as a hobby, right? You still have to drive to the mountain and drive home at the end of the day. That's not fun, but it's part of the deal. You know, it is part of the work that you have to do to be able to have fun. So if you think about that from a business perspective, you should be really grateful that you do get to be creative in your business, and you do get to go play shows and have great times. And then you can't expect it to all just be peaches and roses. You know, you kind of have to, you know, like kind of like grow up and start to realize that if I want to do this, there's a lot of work that I'm going to not want to do as well that I have to do.
Right.
And there's something rewarding about that psychologically too, you know, doing something just not because it feels good, but because you know that it's something that you need to do as a professional or whatever, you know. So I'm always thinking about that too, but I do enjoy doing that work nowadays, I will say.
Yeah.
So it is nice to take a step away from being super creative, because, you know, when I can take a nice break from being creative, it allows me to recharge those creative things rather than really rinsing them out, draining them out, stuff like that, you know.
That's fair. I always saw like the social media algorithms as like a really big black hole, and
well, it's constantly changing, which is the hardest part about it all.
Yeah.
You know, it's like once you figure it out, in 3 months it'll be different. You know, like for example, there was a while where everyone thought they figured it out, and we could do these things called engagement pods, where you get 100 people in a group and you all agree basically whenever we post something new to all go like it and comment on it and boost it up in the algorithm. And that worked really well for like 3 months. And then Instagram caught on, and they found out that you were doing that, they shadow ban you.
So yeah.
They would, so like, yeah, and like buying fake Wallace, come on, what are you yelling at? She's staring in the corner with her blind ass, yelling at the wall, dude. Yeah, Wallace, there's no one out there. Come here, girl. Yeah, but yeah, you know, the second you think you figure it out, well, there's a while when you could get a bot to go like other people's posts for you, right?
Right.
And so, and that worked great for getting followers for a while, and that's how a lot of people got up to, like, you know, these overinflated amount of followers of real followers. In a second, she's freaking out. You know, and like that worked, but then Instagram caught on, and if it saw that you were doing that, it stopped it, and it made it so it wouldn't show your posts to anybody and stuff like that. So
right.
Some of the best advice I can say, if the Instagram offers a new option, or Meta or Facebook, whether it's group live chats or carousel reels or adding audio to certain things or captions, always just do what's new. And what they're pushing you to do, and they'll push you through the algorithm if you do what you want. If you do their cool new thing.
That's true.
But,
good rule. That's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, it also all needs to be high quality photos and high quality videos, and things aren't lit well.
Don't get me started on that, because I'm like I've been trying to launch like a decent Instagram or a Snapchat or whatever the fuck, and I have so much. I've always been an Android guy, and like Android, we have good cameras. We all, you know, we're on par with shit, but all of the social media stuff that we get, you know, that we have to go through is monopolized and put specifically or designed specifically to work with Apple products. So I can't run an Instagram like that looks good as well as anybody else that has like a decent Apple phone. And oh my god, that bothered. It's just that's looking into the abyss, and the abyss staring back at me, like personally. I just it's a big doomer. The doomer nerd in me is just like very sad.
Yeah, Instagram wants their app to look good, so they're only going to push photos that are high resolution, you know,
well,
and
no,
videos.
It's not that. I so what? Sorry, I'm passionate about the subject. We have the technology as Android users, but unfortunately,
but the app just doesn't like Android.
So what it specifically does is when you are using an Android, what it will do is it will capture the pixels that are on the screen and then transport that, no matter how you decide to quote unquote import the photo.
No way, that sucks.
Or actually, no, you can technically import the photo, but if like you're taking a video, what, like, if I take a video with my awesome camera on my awesome Android, what will happen is Instagram will not actually interface with my camera. It will just capture the pixels on my screen, resulting in obviously shitty fucking quality. And that's why Android basically looks like shit when you, like, when your homie like sends you a Snapchat video and it looks like garbage, and you're like, dude, you're not like broke. You just have an Android. And so they just don't properly interface, so you like have to use Apple products in order to play the game, and that's that
oh dude, I had an agent that he's still kind of my agent, but like he had an Android, and we'd always make fun of him because like we would all, like, if we heard a message and understood it, we would all give it the thumbs up, and then he would give it a thumbs up, and it would say so and so liked this comment. Yeah. They were like, dude, that's so dorky and dumb, dude. Just like we're all dropping like gifs and all sorts of shit. They can't do that. It's like, yeah, dude, you need to get an Android, you need to get an Apple phone, bro, if you want to be on the team.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah.
It's rough. It's rough out here, bro. I need
absolutely is.
I just got like a new phone for my birthday, dude. It's like, it is baller, and it cost me $250 fucking dollars. And
nice.
Yeah, no, and I'm like, these new Apple phones are like $1,000, like $1,500, and I'm like, what are you people doing? Why?
Yeah.
Why on earth? But I already described the problem and the solution. It's because you have to use Apple products to play the game.
Yeah, you do, unfortunately.
Not to end on a negative note, but remember that story you wanted to tell about bed bugs in your mullet?
Oh god, yeah, bed bug mullet. Well, that was like, I kind of told you at the time, like I was with Austin Kinetic Groove and we were writing Aliens. That was from that era, and we were living in a like there was like 5 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Littleton, and we had bed bugs. And I had a mullet at the time too, and I remember like having bites back there, and just had this like nasty bed bug bitten mullet on the back of my head, and I wrote a song about it, of how itchy it made me feel.
That's crazy.
And that was the inspiration for that song. I don't know how that song should not have made it on the EP. It's so funny that you like it, but like, yeah, it was just living as a disgusting human, and like, yeah, there was bed bugs in my mullet, and it was just like, this is my life. Like, let's write a song about it. Yeah. But I'm doing way better now. So. Yeah.
Shout out bed bugs. Shout out mullets.
Let's shout out mullets. Fuck bed bugs. I had to get rid of so much stuff in my life. Yeah.
Where are you living now in Denver?
I'm like south Denver. I'm basically in like Littleton, kind of.
Oh, okay. I've never really been around Littleton. I passed through because, you know.
Yeah, it's all you do.
Yeah.
But it's nice. I lived in Rhino. I lived in Lodo. I lived in Cap Hill, and it honestly was just a pain in the ass. Coming from Chicago, which is like a much more like engineered city, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like you can take the L or a bus anywhere like really quick, but Denver you can't do that. There's not a lot of parking, and it's just so crowded and stuff like that down there, and like. I was getting so many parking tickets all the time, and like I was just like, screw this. So I moved out to the burbs, and I love it so much better out here.
Okay. So it's kind of like the burbs out there, like you're not too close to downtown.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm like 15 minutes from downtown, but like it's definitely a lot more suburby.
Got you. Yeah, no, I feel like I've been like the suburbia hell. I feel like is about 15 minutes away from my doorstep.
Yeah, it's not far. We're always here chilling.
Oh, for sure, my dude. Oh, well, I don't think I have too many like interesting things jotted down, man. Like,
no, you're good, man, dude. I'm down. I'm gonna fucking probably take a shower and go to the studio. So,
dude, hell yeah, man. I really appreciate you like taking the time to, honestly, just taking the time, man. In general, like, thank you for having this conversation.
Yeah, of course, man. Happy birthday, dude.
Thanks, dude. This has been an awesome way to celebrate. Trust me, I was looking forward to this, and I could not stop talking about it.
Dude, yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Dude, no problem. So I'll tell you.
You want to say goodbye, Wallace?
Yeah. Oh.
You want to say goodbye? No? You're not going to bark now? Okay.
Hi, Wallace.
Okay.
Wallace.
Bye, Wallace. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah. She's looking up. She's so cute. No, she just hit her head on the table. Oh, did you hear that?
Is that what's been going on, bro? Because
yeah, she hits stuff a lot because she's blind. Yeah, she like kind of bumps into things. Is how she sees her way around. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the first time I heard it, I flinched, dude. I thought like a fucking gun went off in your house, dude. I was.
No, she's just bumping into the table. just finding where I am. She put her head on my lap.
Oh, that's so okay. Yeah.
She's cute.
Yeah, no, there were a couple of times went off. I was like, damn, like fucking, he's really out there. All right,
word, man. Well, hopefully I'll see you soon. Yeah, next time I play in Fort Collins, holler at me.
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
If you ever want to come to a show down here, just holler. Yeah.
Yeah, no, if you're playing or however that works out, I'm close by. I'd love to at least meet you in person again. And thank you, like I said, thank you for the conversation, my dude. I feel like I would have plenty to learn from you. I am an aspiring teacher myself. Thank you for being on the channel and sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll play you out with Bedbug Mullet, and
all right, let's go.
Yeah, it's just kind of the same deal. You can just mute yourself, and then after that, we'll probably be in the green room again. So
awesome, dope.
Awesome. All right. To everyone listening, my name is braV. Do you want to say anything? Actually, wait, no, you should plug yourself. Let the people know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, no, it's all good. Homemade Spaceship. Yeah, keep on the lookout. I got a lot more music coming out soon. I got a Knocked Loose remix coming out on October 6th. Got also a Halloween surprise for you guys, a little special remix I'm dropping before Halloween, so stay tuned. Got a couple more EPs planned I'm going to drop soon and some merch coming out, so follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever. Yeah, but yeah, thanks to anyone who listened. Yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All of the links will be in the description if you are listening or if you're listening to this in the past, present, or the future. My name is braV. We have had Homemade Spaceship, and I can't produce a podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all the cool stuff there. This is Homemade Spaceship, Bedbug Mullet. My name is braV once again, playing you out. Peace, y'all.